Hello to all the listeners. My name is Dylan,
And I'm Dylan.
and we would like to thank you for taking the time to give us a listen. And if you do enjoy, please drop a like and subscribe for our weekly podcast, or even check out the clips that we post from each show.
You can also follow us at our Twitter on screen and then tune in each week, Wednesday night, for our weekly podcast streaming at DatDill on Twitch.
Thank you, and enjoy the podcast. So, welcome one and all to another podcast this week. Not a super crazy week for sports, I feel like. Just because Memorial Weekend, the holiday, people got stuff going on. There's really not a lot of sports news hitting the Twitter feed or anything, but there was a lot of stuff today, as well as some interesting stuff that we'll kind of cover. So obviously, right off the bat, Naomi Osaka and that whole saga is something that we'll talk about. We'll also address the NBA playoffs. We'll also go into some of the NFL talk, some quarterbacks that I want to highlight. One quarterback who is just obviously breaking the internet right at the moment with his amazing mullet. And then another kind of, I don't know if I want to call it a new segment that I want to start, but basically a segment that I want to start is basically where I want to go over players or quarterbacks to look out for. I mean, I'm a big quarterbacks guy. I'm pretty good at scouting quarterbacks, or at least in my opinion, feel like I've done a pretty good job over the years of kind of picking out the quarterbacks that I think are going to be successful, and they usually are. So in that way, I like to highlight some players and quarterbacks that I think that everybody should be on the lookout for next year. And so we'll start with our first player of the week there as well. So that'll be a little bit later. And then, of course, we'll also, kind of cover just a range of things that we'll go through. I'm sure the conversation will either evolve or devolve into whatever we just start talking about just for the heck of it. And that's how you get like the angry Major League Baseball rant that I went on, about that. It's just, things like that happen. So, yeah.
Natural evolution, yep.
Exactly. And it just, that's kind of how it goes and everything. So I think we should also, because you actually have one today and I do as well, is we can also start first off right off the bat with just being like, all right, what are we drinking? So what is it that you happen to be drinking? Because I did see that.
I only have one of these left, but it's just Kugel's Summer Shandy. Oh, there's the blur. That's gone.
Nice.
Super basic one.
I mean, I can't wait until the Kugel Summer Shandy, like the orange, come out. As soon as that happens, I'm going to be drinking that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And it was last year I drank a ton of it during the summer because it's like my summer drink. It's like my favorite thing. So this summer, when that happens, I'm down and that'll be what I'll be drinking. So
Is there like a release date, or how did you know about it, like supposedly coming out soon?
Well, no, it's not something I like know that's supposedly coming out soon. It's more or less like I just drink it last summer all the time, and I'm assuming hopefully that they're coming out with it again this summer.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that would be great if they do. I haven't seen it in stores yet, which is unfortunate, which makes me think that maybe there's a chance that it's not, but I really hope it does.
Yeah.
So
what were you going at?
So then I personally am drinking right now, which I don't know if I'm drinking all three of these, but is a Jack and Daniels. I have these left over from Memorial Day weekend, which is the Tennessee quality whiskey and cola mixes, where they're like a premixes.
What? Okay.
Yeah. Did you? Okay. Here we go. This is what we talked about. Devolves or evolves into segments, and this is one right here. Did you see this whole like trend that's happening now in liquor stores and everything with mixed drinks, like pre-mixed cans?
Oh, I had no idea this was a thing.
Okay, so if you go to the store, and they even have them at like Walmart and stuff because I've seen them around. But if you go to the store, even like any liquor store that you go to, they have these like new things now, which are like these pre-mixed cans. And but if it's interesting because you can get literally anything. So for example, this weekend I had the Jack Daniels and the cola and whiskey one. So this is a pre-mixed can. It's 7%. It's kind of stronger on the whiskey side, so like if you like whiskey, it's going to be a great mix for you. If you also enjoy just a whiskey and cola mix in general, it's going to be good. I like it a lot. To me it tastes exactly how I want it to be mixed every time, so I'm good with it. But then I tried for example, I had Bacardi Limon and lemonade too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another premix that was really good that I highly recommend this summer if you're interested. I tried, for example, and they're just like they sell them in like 4-packs of cans.
Yeah.
And like every brand and like everybody's starting to come out with them. Like I saw there's like a gin and tonic one. There is like a whiskey and juice one. There's like a vodka and lemonade one. There's like a bunch of different ones that like are like mixes that you would yeah, it was like whiskey and juice. Like there's a lot of mixes that are now in the stores that you can get that are like just like random things or like common drink mixes that you could order at the bar, but they are now selling them like pre-made in cans. And like I said, the Jack Daniels one that I've had so far has been really good. And then I think the Bacardi Limon and Lemonade one, if I find it more in the future, is going to be one for sure that I end up drinking because it's really good.
Yeah, this is definitely the first time I've ever heard that and seeing it now.
One, if I find it more in the future, is going to be one for sure. So if you go to the liquor store, for everybody out there listening, if you go to the liquor store and you want to just try something new because it's summer and we're coming off of COVID and we're finally able to see people and human beings again, you should definitely try some of those premixes
Using
because
alcohol to deal with seeing people again.
exactly. Well, you know that's it's just general life, Dylan. I mean, that's how it goes. But no, I do highly recommend trying the drink mixes because they're kind of fun. I don't know, they're just different. It's not what they're used to. I've been in my, I get it. What she's saying, but oh, okay. Sorry. So you just jumped in. We haven't gotten to that topic yet, so I will leave that thought for a moment. Let us finish our terrible conversation about not terrible conversation, great conversation about how if you haven't tried these drink mixes, which actually you can chime in too on this if you have. I was talking about how I'm currently drinking, which I'll show it again for you to the webcam. I am currently drinking the Jack Daniels whiskey and cola pre-mixed cans, and I find it very tasting and refreshing. And they now have these all over in stores, which I recommend if you are of age to drink. And try these. That they're like premixes for like vodka ones. There's tequila ones. There's whiskey and juice ones. There's like gin and tonic. There's like all kinds of these mixes, and I recommend trying them because I had a Bacardi Limon and Lemonade one, which again I just said not too long ago, but that's definitely one that I'm going to have in the future. So, yeah. So that's that was what we were talking about. But I am going to. We can now shift over. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to say on that topic.
What are some examples of some other ones that you've seen like already? Like there was a bunch of different ones.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna write that down
what
too.
What are some examples of some other?
No, so there was So like I said, there was like the vodka. There was like it's just like brands are starting to come out with like their own. So like there was I'm starting to see like there was a Captain one if I remember correctly. Like I said, there was like the Bacardi Limon one. There's like tequila ones that are coming out. The Jack Daniels one, which is the one I saw. There's a whatever the brand of gin is. They had that gin and tonic mix. And I've seen some other mixes as well. I can't remember off the top of my head because I just haven't been there. But yeah, no, I've seen a couple of these different mixes and they're really good, honestly. It's like I said, it's different than what I'm used to drinking, which is nice because you just change it up, And so I've enjoyed it. This is what I'm drinking tonight. So
yeah, and check out the Creamsicle Fluff Milkshake IPA with orange zest and Tatiana.
That sounds incredible.
Does sound like something I would try. Where's that sold at? Google that now.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely research that for sure, and I'm gonna definitely get that at some point.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. So let's transition to our first actual sports topic of the podcast. So what I would like to do as far as talking about this is run down sports kind of how we got to where we are. And then from there, after we kind of run through where we got to where we are and how kind of all relevant information and everything you need to understand as far as the situation goes, we'll then kind of give our opinion on what we think this kind of says about her, the situation, and then in my opinion just kind of overall sports and what this could mean as far as other athletes and other sports and everything. And so oh boy, oh no, did you see the comment? Oh, is it not popped up for you? There you go.
Oh,
Now you
there's
can
a
read it.
delay echo.
What does that mean?
That should have been from me trying to balance audio in the background. If it's still going on, a delay echo. If it's still going on right now, let me know.
Let us know.
If it was happening on and off in the beginning, that was me trying to figure out the audio balances between my mic and his audio, which you could tell me also how that sounds. But yeah,
Just give us idea of how everything sounds.
now that the modement's been multiple times better now. Okay, yeah, so I've stopped doing that. I've determined this is probably an okay balance. It's hard to do unless you're live or I'm like able to record beforehand or something. So yes, thank you for letting me know though.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Okay. So, anyways, yeah. So like I said, I think we are going to start where we kind of run through everything that has gotten to us this point in this kind of topic. We'll kind of run through all the pertinent information, like I said, and then at the end we'll kind of give ourselves an idea of what we think on this, what's happening with her, what's happening in the media, how people are reacting to it, and then we'll also kind of give our own commentary on what we think in this affects the sports world and kind of the overarching conversations that can be had about this that this kind of opens the door to. So right off the bat, to kind of start, like I said, we'll run through the pertinent information. So I kind of took notes to actually get us to an understanding of why we got to where we are. So for those that don't know, Naomi Osaka is one of the youngest, brightest stars in tennis at the moment. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think she's in her early 20s, like 23, 24 years old, somewhere in that range. She's the second best ranked international player in the world. And I also read somewhere, I don't know if it's 100% true, didn't fact check this, blame it on me. I guess she's the highest paid athlete as well, highest paid female athlete, I should say. So
Yeah,
that's, I guess that comes from like
sponsorships and endorsements,
yeah,
everything else plus that.
sponsorships, winnings, because she's one of the biggest named tennis players in the world, and she's one of those where she's ridiculously talented, young, is that of course puts her in the spotlight just being that way. So that's kind of the gist there. She also essentially what happened with this whole situation, where we are at the moment, and then kind of what she said about it, and then what led to that. So essentially, where we are at the moment is basically she had made a comment to her fans over social media, I believe it was, basically stating that she was going to avoid any of the press conferences in the future, and that was kind of what she said on this. And then, of course, everybody freaked out because her missing the press conference. They fined her $15,000 for missing the press conference. And then there was a statement put out by the leaders of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments that are famous in tennis. For those of the people out there that don't know, it is the Australian Open, the US Open, the French Open, and Wimbledon. Those are the 4 Grand Slam championships tournaments. And basically, those are like the, for PGA golf, winning like a major. Those are like the majors in tennis. So winning those is huge for your career. So it's almost like winning the Masters, if you win one of those, if you win Wimbledon or something.
Right.
So that does that for your career. So those 4, the leaders of those 4 Grand Slams came out and basically made a statement saying that if she was going to continue to do this, that they would basically potentially levy a suspension down on her for the champion or tournaments in kind of a response to this. And the reason why they said that is their justification was that they said everybody should be treated equally and that no one should be treated differently, and so that this is how they're going to do it. You can agree, disagree with whatever that kind of relevant information. I think it's really just they get money from those press conferences, so of course they want their stars and best people to be at the press conferences and everything. And we'll talk more about the overarching conversation about press conferences even in general later on. So, but that was the statement that was released by them. She then came out and basically said that she's leaving or stepping away from the sport at the moment, and stepping away from the French Open, which is where she was. The French Open being again one of those 4 Grand Slam tournaments that I named previously. She cited that she was stepping away to kind of help with her mental health, and that she has been dealing with depression since the 2018 U.S. Open, I believe it was. And if I don't know if people remember that really well, but the 2018 US Open was the tournament where essentially she was playing Serena Williams, and it was a kind of a big controversy, even where because she was playing Serena Williams, it was like her biggest. She was a huge fan growing up, all through high school and stuff like that. She loved Serena Williams, kind of one of her idols in tennis. And that match kind of went sideways because there was a couple faults that Serena got punished for or was getting punished for in the match, like mid match while it was going on. And then at one point, I don't know if she talked to her coach or had talked to her coach, and receiving coaching mid match in tennis is against the rules. You're not allowed to receive any coaching mid, as the match is going. So essentially, while that happened, Serena then was outraged with all what she was dealing with through the whole match, and then that kind of boiled over to where she ended up smashing her racket. She ended up leaving it. She was like unhappy, and then there was some like pretty distasteful, comments and comics and things drawn about her and Serena Williams, and it kind of that was a whole nother conversation overarching about just sports in general. But that whole thing happened, and it kind of affected her basically, where ever since then she's been kind of battling depression, she said, behind the scenes, and then cited that as part of the reason why she was stepping away. Now, what he kind of addressed is that a lot of people think that she was causing a distraction, or she was becoming a distraction, or about being a distraction, things like that. It's one of those where this whole situation happening, what she even she talks about basically is how she's always had anxiety talking to the press, and how those issues have always been there, and it's not something that she's ever really grown comfortable with. And then, like I said, this depression that she's kind of been battling since. And then after that whole stuff came out, essentially her a couple of people came out in support of her. So of course, like Steph Curry came out in support of her. Recently I saw Bubba Watson, the golfer, came out basically talking about his own battles of depression. And a lot of people even cited things like back in the day when Reggie Bush, was it Reggie Bush, or no, it wasn't Reggie Bush, it was another running back, Reggie Williams. When he was in the NBA or NFL, he was doing like press conferences, like post game press conferences, like with a helmet on, because he hated talking to the press, and it always gave him like anxiety. It's cited and everything. Which, in my opinion, now kind of giving out all the facts and everything, kind of where we are. My opinion on the immediate issue before we break into kind of conversations about what this means in sports and what this could mean in the future. In my opinion, it's something that people don't realize is that, and we always say it, but athletes are humans, and it's one of those where people just don't realize that, like, you can say all you want, like, oh, you became a famous player, you're in the spotlight and all that stuff like that. You're supposed to be dealing with this, like, you chose this, things like that get thrown out there all the time. And it's one of those where it's not really the case, for a lot of people. Yeah, there's athletes for sure that enjoy the spotlight, love the spotlight, and that's what they live for. But there's also athletes that like just were good at the sport, got to this level, and now have this all sudden huge sudden fame thrown on them at such a young age, and all the pressure that comes with that, being as highly ranked as she is, and all the the hype and everything like that. And especially with Serena Williams being in there, and we all know Serena Williams is getting older, and it's going to get to a point where she's not in women's tennis anymore, and that's kind of like been the icon of women's tennis for years. So it's one of those where once she does step away, it's the same thing with golf, where for years we've been looking for the next Tiger, and that we put massive pressure on young golfers such as Rory McIlroy. Jordan Spieth felt that pressure at one point. And now you got guys like Zalatoris, that's being talked about as ridiculously, and we actually even covered Zalatoris in a video. Colin Morikawa is another guy that's popping up too. It's just that happens in golf, is people are always looking for the next Tiger Woods. Same with the NBA, it's always looking for the next Michael Jordan. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way it works. And same with the world of tennis, and women's tennis specifically, people are looking for the next Serena Williams. And so of course, that happens, and then you get a young superstar who's coming into it, and guess what, it's one of those where at the end of the day, yeah, she's this talented and everything like that, and she's in the spotlight for how good she is and what she is as far as an icon for other tennis players in the world. But not every person is built to, field the media questions, field the hate from the media questions. I mean, it's one thing to say, don't read it or don't look into it or you shouldn't listen to internet trolls and stuff like that. And we can all say that in a perfect world and it's nice and we can all agree. But the problem is that for some people, they look at stuff, they look at the commentators, they look at comments and, on posts and on social media. And I'm sure she's getting direct messages and I'm sure she's getting hats that are, coming at her for things or, and I'm sure that happens to everybody. Yes. But there's some people that just don't handle it as well as others and don't handle the spotlight as well as others. And so I think, in my opinion, if you're looking at the whole situation, I think people need to kind of lay off it a little bit and realize that not everybody's built for the spotlight. And sometimes the spotlight gets forced upon you because of, your talent and everything like that. And it's nice, when as an outlooker, I can go, well, she's making tons of money. Second, the highest paid female athlete in the world, yada, yada, yada. That's all. It's got to be nice. I wish I was, half that, or something like that. And you can say all that, but then you also have to understand that there's all the spotlight, the pressure, all the talk, all the comments that get seen, just general things that are going to come up about you that you maybe weren't prepared for or never had to deal with when you were in high school and college and weren't, as well known. So for me, in my opinion, and I'll let you, give your opinion on the whole topic. But for me, I think people just need to kind of relax and lay off it a little bit. It's one of those where you don't know how people are going to react to the pressure and into everything. And yeah, I think people do need to realize that sometimes these athletes do need to take a step away from the sport or take a step away from the spotlight and everything and understand that, they are under immense pressure all the time, every day, all day. And it's nice for us to realize every once in a while that they are human and need a break, just like me and you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to go ahead and give your opinion here as well.
So it's funny. So like addressing the thing in the chat about being a Marshawn Lynch type of thing. Yeah, that's also something I had been thinking of, like immediately as you started to bring it up. I was also thinking about this like in the past week, and kind of just connecting the dots here. But if you're looking at not like the personal side of it, I'll get to that as a second point. But like the first part of it, it's almost kind of a that there's a term for it. I always forget about it. Basically, when you bring more attention to something. When you call it out rather than if you just left it alone.
Yeah.
You probably know the word or the term that I'm trying to think of exactly.
Yeah, I can't think
Not
of it, but I know what
Schrodinger,
you're saying.
Schrodinger, that. It'll come to me at some point, but basically, yeah, it's almost, it feels like that sort of situation, even if you were thinking about it that from a business perspective, where like Marshawn Lynch blew up because of that. And then like, it's like, oh yeah, the NFL is like really mad about that. Like they want to get their exposure, and he blew up his image, his brand, also the NFL in general, and it became like so much of a bigger deal and so much of a bigger story, and got like eyeballs on the screen compared to if they had just left it alone. So it's interesting because it's like overreacting in this sort of way. I had never heard of her before until just now because of the story. Now you have my attention, you have my eyeballs on the screen, and like me actually following a story and trying to keep up with it. And I am almost wondering if like obviously aside from the problems that she's having herself and she's trying to deal with right now, I wonder if she knew that this story was going to blow up, and because of like all the fines and all that, and she tried to get out ahead of it, and she said, okay, instead of actually giving you the coverage for me like doing this and then back and forth being a bigger story and stuff, and you getting all the coverage and all the money and the revenue from all that attention, like I'm just going to retire for now and slip out of the spotlight because that's what I actually want. Like I actually just want like time away from people, because I feel like she kind of knew that was going to be a bigger thing and blow up. So interesting from a business side, because I wonder if they were just like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll fine you and make a story out of it, and now it's going to get even bigger. It's going to help us. $15,000 to you, whatever, we get that. That's a negligible amount of money to them, but just in the news media coverage, I thought that was kind of interesting too. So good for her for like completely getting out in front of that and taking away any advantage or anything else that came up of it. But that's for the business side of it. For the personal side of it, yeah, I absolutely understand what you would want to do with that. I like, even in terms of not even like getting anxiety from talking about questions and getting questions from reporters and fielding them all the time. That has to be such an aggravating job to just hear and see the same thing, like the same stupid questions over and over again, and come up with like more creative responses to the same things. Figure this thing out, but like say it in a diplomatic way, which you don't actually want to say. Like, I know they're going to always be doing that for their news coverage and what have you, but Um, completely forgetting about the anxiety side of it. Like I can understand why she would hate doing press conferences. It seems like all athletes, for the most part, seem to. And having to shoulder that constantly over and over and over again. I don't know if like more context behind like if there was there a certain event that happened that she kept on getting asked about, or was there invasive parts of like her personal life that reporters are starting to get into, or was it just like in general the news coverage, the day to day, like, oh, how do you feel about this person? How do you know, that sort of thing.
I think I think if I remember looking at it, there wasn't anything specific that kind of like immediately drew her to make this decision, but it was one of those where it just kind of came about over the course of time. And I do remember, I actually forgot to mention this. I did want to throw this in there. I did read too that when she actually won the U.S. Open match over Serena Williams back in 2018, and that was huge or whatever.
Yeah.
When that whole drama happened, people were actually like, I read these comments, so they exist, and I'm not just saying this to like throw shade at people or like give light or help to her or whatever that's out of context. No, I read these actual posts. And saw these things, but basically people were actually commenting like saying rude stuff to her basically as if like it was a bad thing that she won against Serena when Serena was getting like those faults and like punishment. So like this girl couldn't even celebrate like her winning these like big matches against big people and like becoming a household name because she was starting to already get not overshadowed by the whole Serena stuff, but then also, stuff thrown at her about like even just beating Serena during during a match where Serena wasn't at her best or whatever people had to say. And, so that I'm sure that probably started, especially just being at a young age and being so excited and playing your idol and everything, for it to go so wrong the way it did. And then, everything after that, of course. So with all the pressure and everything, I think that's what kind of added into it. So,
Yeah. I mean, people always have problems with like the new guard coming in, taking over things. I mean, you see that with, I mean, you could any number of players. I mean, okay, the first thing you talk about for later is like assuming like if you'd say LeBron or something is starting to age out, whatever. Like every team or everyone that's going to beat him is going to get a ton of hate everywhere and online and everything because people are so attached to that. So I'm not really surprised by that. That's kind of sad that it can't be a thing. I mean, I kind of get it. Like, yeah, obviously it's sad because people are stupid, but I see them as being like, okay, I gotten so attached to this person for so many years now. Now I'm seeing them fade away. It's making me realize I'm old and also their time's gone and now my time's going. Maybe there's a lot of conflicting emotions with what's going on with that, and that's part of the reason why people are so violent and like mouthy about it. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised by that. You just don't hear about people getting affected by it as much because it's just like, oh yeah, that's just the way it is, and I guess most people are fine with that and just okay with it. It's just your classic like hometown bar take. It'd just be like, they're getting paid so much money. What are they complaining about? They got nothing to
yep.
complain about. They could just pay, like literally just the one where you just go, yeah, dude, for sure, and like, okay, and then look away.
Yeah. Yeah, like I understand that celebrities give up a certain amount of privacy for their celebrity status. I understand that that's a thing. I also understand that they make a lot of money and they're compensated well for some of that. You could say, but there is something to say about people, especially in sports, because sports are so unique in the sense that a household name like a Tom Cruise, for instance, like he's been a Tom Cruise since since he started his first couple movies and became famous. Whereas it's one of those where like athletes can kind of come from literally nowhere, like grow up in, the, poverty stricken area of a city and suddenly be vaulted into where they're getting paid millions of dollars a year and are in the spotlight and are talked about, amongst millions of people across the world. And so it's one of those where not everybody's, able to handle all that. And not everybody should be able to handle that because it's not a normal thing. So I get that, in her sense that this is kind of built up from that. And I could see why, being so young as you are and finally making a name for yourself and then have that be in such a, not like a bad way, but just in such a like sour taste in your mouth kind of feel where you win against your idol. And that should be like almost passing the torch moment, maybe between two careers, which would be maybe how it would go in a normal situation. But in the unique situation that it happened, and then with the way the fans were and the way that it all went down, and then, I could see how that would start your whole path of, then you start noticing the downside to things in the future, and then the press conferences get too much, and then it's just one of those where you just have to step away from the sport and just be like, okay, I need a minute, to process everything, and I need to actually like get myself right because I'm literally a 20 something year old phenom in the sport, and I need to figure out what that means for me and what I want out of this. So I get it.
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, she's obviously like, it's not like she's at the end of her career. She's got years and needs to invest the time, now, make herself feel better and back and all. Have plenty of time to do that. Does this mean I'm assuming she already has made that decision, but she's out for like the competitions that are coming up that you said that are coming up very
I
soon?
don't I don't know if she said that she was done for competitions in the future, or any competition in the future. I don't know if she took herself out of those. I just know that she took herself out of the current French Open,
Okay,
the Grand
yeah,
Slam tournament going on, and then is just stepping away from tennis for the moment. So I don't know if it's one of those where she just needs like a week or two by herself away from everything to, get right, or if it will be something that continues in the future. But I just know that that's at the moment what it seems to be, is that she just stepped away from the current tournament.
gotcha.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, so and then the other thing too that I kind of actually want to talk about going off of this as well, real quick, before we move on, which is actually something a question of a greater, not not talking about her or using the situation lightly, but something I just thought was interesting that I want to mention that I saw kind of a hot take on, and it was about this in general, in a different sense from looking at it as, do players really need press conferences like they used to? And the reason why I saw this was a thing is because, and I kind of get it, is that back in the day, press conferences used to be a thing where, because you didn't have social media to get your name out there, because of all that, you were able, like fans and people were able to get to know you and your personality based on post press conferences, and you're talking to the media and talking to the public in that way. And so it's one of those where it brings up a kind of an interesting question, that kind of isn't related but related, is whether or not athletes really need the press conference or post-game press conference anymore as much as the networks and sports places need it for revenue and things like that. And it was citing things like, for example, like Kyrie Irving, been doesn't like doing press conferences or whatever, and they were saying like, well, does Kyrie Irving really need the press conference to answer the same questions he does all the time, or anything, if he can just get his own like popularity and stuff based on social media? And that goes the same for most athletes, where they can interact with their fans and their fans can see their personality and get to know them better on social media. So it's one of those where, do we actually really, like, do players really need to value the press conference as well as they used to? Which was just an interesting idea that I thought was kind of fun to poke at and see if what you thought about that and talk about it.
So is the question, do the players themselves for their own benefit need press conferences, or as a whole, the sport or the team? Because
Like
then
it
that's
was,
different.
yeah, it was basically saying like, with players not needing it as much anymore for popularity, ego gaining, usually that's when people, like I said, back before social media and everything,
Right.
would kind of interact with the player and kind of get to know their personality. The question kind of is, with that being said, does the sports world really need post game press conferences anymore? Especially because there's always controversy with them, where you always see things where it's like, some reporter asks a dumb question like, well, why didn't you shoot well? And then the person goes like, what do you want me to say? Like, I didn't do well. What do you want me to say? And like gets angry. And then
Yeah.
it's just a pointless press conference. Like, the things like that always pop up, where it's like the reporters just start asking dumb stuff or something happens. And the question is basically, do we need those in sports anymore? Or is it one of those where we can all just kind of like, maybe a weekly press conference is good enough and let's call it a day?
I'll say, unfortunately, like I think it's like in terms of personal growth, and if like players want to brand themselves and get themselves in recognition, like, certainly not. They don't need that at all. In terms of like keeping the sport fresh in everybody's minds and giving people to talk about and giving the 24/7 news cycle with almost every sport now, like yeah, they definitely need it because those clips you're talking about where people get mad at like stupid questions, those are what like circulate on Twitter. People have effects on that. You got your one like your cousin Andy or whatever saying like, why did he have to react like that? And then you got like Uncle George being like, well, he's just asking a question, and then that generates news cycles. That's a hashtag that gets like more exposure to the sport. That forms an opinion about the player and then why people like them, they hate it, all like fosters engagement, and they love that. Like there's so much stuff on that because there's so many things you could do with that and networks or YouTube or literally what we're doing right now to talk about. It literally keeps it fresh in people's minds, and that's what's annoying about it. It's like when you hate a commercial and you hear it all the time, and even though you hate it so much, it's like stuck in your head and you're like, I'll never buy that product. That's how I am with most things. It still takes that part of your brain every time you see something related to it, and it forces that connection when you're seeing things like that. And it just takes parts of your vision in like things you're paying attention to. It always takes up space. So for the business and like the sports franchise or sports entity as itself, like yeah, they definitely need. They love that. They would have more of it if they could. That's why you see there's so much around like the OTAs, maybe like for the NFL or any practices, G League practices. I mean, even if it's outside of sports conferences, I guess you can make an argument that like players having their own social media on the side, like having their own videos and stuff and like recording things at practices. I mean, those get fostered around pretty well too, or like thrown around, but I don't know if they're also, you can't enforce it. You can't like regulate it and have it once a week like you're talking about, or maybe even more than that. It's just kind of relying on players to be expressive on their own, which in a lot of cases, I think we talked about this before, like with the MLB or the NHL, if you don't have that sort of thing and give those players like opportunities to express themselves and kind of force them to, they don't have superstars to market. They don't have other people to throw into the national spotlight and write stories about. So I think it kind of forces it, and they do the best they can with that. And you get lots of different scenarios where people don't. They just have the same answers. The people who slip into the background and you don't hear a lot about, they give you the media answer, they give you the PR answer, boom, they're done, they're out of there. Everyone's happy, they're done with it, and the press gets something that they can clip into, dot, 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 they said, blah, dot, 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 they'll retire, or whatever else it might be. So yeah, it depends on who you're talking about, I guess, and the stakeholders in it, but I think in terms of like sports media, it needs it desperately for lots of different reasons, especially if we're talking about in the season, especially off season, I guess. It could be important, but yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, it is true that obviously those clips and stuff like that, kind of make the sport, and you get those like sound bites that, everybody then uses for the next week on the show before the next content comes. And if you're like a fan of one sport, for instance, and, in the bye week or in the week where, for example, the NFL, how it occurs on basically, Sunday and Monday night, all that. And it's like during the week, people are looking for news and stuff to talk about. And so then they start talking about those sound bites. And those are great ways for, like you said, people to make memes or, form opinions about people, or, kind of bring, conversation to a topic that maybe wouldn't get talked about before. I mean, like, for instance, what we're talking about right now with this whole segment, about Naomi, Osaka, not going to press conferences. I just think it's interesting to think about whether or not it matters for the players and whether or not they'll actually really fight for press conferences or post-game press conferences more specifically. Because press conferences in general are a thing that I think obviously the sports world needs, but I think it's more about post-game press conferences as far as like immediately after the game. Players hate talking to the media immediately after the game. Sometimes, if you've won, you want to celebrate. If you lost, you want to move on to the next game, that kind of thing. And answering questions about your play and stuff like that when that you didn't play well, or it always gets people angry, and players hate it. So it's one of those where I almost wonder if players will ever put their foot down with this, and this will be continuing to be a thing where we'll start to see players refuse more and more to do post-game press conferences just because of all of that. I mean, how many times in the post-game press conference can we ask Aaron Rodgers if he likes Jordan Love, or it's like, it's things like that where you just go like, this, how many times can we do this before like it starts to get too redundant where players are just like, listen, I don't want to be here. This is, people aren't watching this over and over again, like for this, same question to be asked and me to say the same thing. So I think there's something to be said there. But yeah, I just it's just an interesting commentary I saw on the topic, and kind of something that came out of this about players' power and individual athletes' power in their own sports media, and just their own sport in general, and being able to kind of flex that a little bit in post-game press conferences does make sense if that is a thing going forward. So yeah, so it's just, like I said, just a fun topic that I kind of wanted to cover, that I thought was interesting. I saw it proposed basically in a couple articles, and that's what kind of sparked me to kind of, I don't know, think about that, or like see that and be like, oh, that would be kind of a fun topic, get our opinions on, as well as maybe get some comments from viewers and stuff. But yeah, so just something I thought would be interesting to bring up and everything like that. Now, to kind of shift away from all of that, and kind of move to a different topic overall, we can kind of shift over to the NBA, which I you're, I see the I see the problem happening.
That yeah,
uh,
something weird
God,
happened there.
I love when that stuff happens.
New
People
OBS
feel
update.
vexed. Okay. Anyways, now I think we're good to go. Good to go there.
Yeah.
Oh god, that cracks me up. Anyways, so yeah, shift over to the NBA, with the news coming out about Danny Ainge stepping down as the president of basketball operations for the Celtics. It's one of those where it's he's run the Celtics very well, and they've been very competitive over the years. He's always gotten good coaches in there. He's always gotten good teams put together in his tenure there. It's just one of those where I guess maybe he just wants to step away from the game, which is understandable, and I completely get it if that's the case. Or if he just feels like it's time. I don't know. I didn't hear anything about there being like internal pressure to leave the job or not, so I don't think that that's really what's driving this decision. I will say, though, there is something to be said about when Coach K was retiring or thinking about retiring. There was a lot of questions about, like, oh, would Brad Stevens go back to college to take the Duke job? Because obviously he'd be set up there, and that would be a good job, for him and everything if he wants to get back into college basketball, which I think is interesting and definitely an idea for sure. But looking at what we're currently looking at, basically with Danny Ainge and him stepping down at this current moment, I do wonder if that played a role into it, and maybe internally you won't ever hear about it, but internally that played a role. And that's what they got Brad Stevens to stay, is because they were like, hey, we're about to have this massive position open to run the entire organization. How about you do that? And then that's what you get him. I do wonder where they go in coaching for the next coach regime that comes in, especially because his team's such a young, talented team with Jason Tatum and Brown and all of them slowly growing together. And it's a very young team, so they have a lot of growth to happen, and they could get some veterans to change the tide there as well, as experience together. But I'm intrigued to see what they bring in as far as the coaching staff, and what Brad Stevens does overall with the team, as far as maybe making decisions. As far as player personnel, he's got probably a lot more pull in that direction, and as well as maybe what coaching staff he wants to bring in. I don't know if he'll maybe want to bring the coaching staff that he thinks relates most to his coaching style, and that's what he wants to continue the coaching tree in that department, or if he wants to basically pass it on to a whole new coaching regime, get a new kind of feel and intrigue, I guess, going. So it really just depends. I'm kind of curious to see where it goes. I don't know, if you think what you think about this, or
So
you have
first reaction is, wow, he's 44. Like he looks.
yeah,
I thought he was like upper 30s and stuff. At least from this picture. This picture's a little bit too complimentary. He's been coaching or whatever. But who makes like those decisions? Like, is it literally top down from the owner at this point? Is it Danny Ainge in his acting position of GM decides that Brad Stevens will be the takeover for this position? I assume it has to be checked with the higher ups. I'm just kind of curious about how that power dynamic works when
yeah.
you're
I
in that
think
transition period.
I would think that it has to be handled internally, as far as the higher ups make the decision. But I think it's one of those where it's almost a perfect storm of everything. If it works if it works well, it's like a perfect storm of everything, where he wants to step down because he feels it's right. Brad Stevens is there, and he feels Brad Stevens can take over, and so does the ownership. And so then they want to make that change happen as smoothly and swiftly as possible. And if this is happening the day after they lose in the playoffs and are knocked out, that makes me think that this is something that has been a thought for Danny Ainge throughout the whole season. I just, like I said, my overall fear is I wonder if he was almost kind of pushed out a little bit in a way because they were afraid of losing maybe Brad Stevens to the Coach K, replacement job, or if it was one of those where basically they had said that they told Brad Stevens like, hey, Danny Ainge is going to quit soon. We'd like you to take over his position. And then that was kind of a, behind closed doors agreement kind of thing. That's my whole thing. I just wonder how it occurred. I wonder if the takeover happened, organically with Danny Ainge stepping down and him taking over his position, because it seems almost too perfect. And just knowing sports, that never is, it's never smooth and nice and everybody's happy with the decision when stuff like that happens. So that's where I wonder. But I would say to your question, because I kind of ranted a little bit there, I will say to your question, I think it has to come from ownership. And then I think that you also have to have Danny Ainge be in agreement, as well as Brad Stevens behind closed doors, all of them be in agreement that this is going to happen. So,
Yeah,
and yeah, Danny Ainge was kind of a dirty player back in the day. But I will say the fun fact about Danny Ainge, I'm pretty sure if you want to look it up, he was going to be he could have been like a 3-sport athlete if he wanted. So that's pretty wild. And he was like one of the best defenders in the league at the time. Back when he was playing with that Celtics team that had like 5 Hall of Famers on it. So yes, he was a player back in the day. Was a little dirty, but that's mostly because of that era. And he was also a defensive guy. So being a defensive guy in that era, you kind of almost had to be a little dirty just to be that way. But yes, he was a player during that like ridiculous Larry Bird Celtics times, during early Jordan years, Magic years, when that whole thing was happening in the 80s. But go ahead with what you were going to say.
That thought kind of got wiped from my mind. Actually, what I'm asking you about now instead is every time I saw people talking about this, just happened today or yesterday, whatever it was pretty much that I think that they would only be protecting like 2 players in the entire team, and they'd probably be willing to trade everything else if they had to like retool their team. Do you think they have to do that as they're currently constructed, or are they in a place where they just need to retool a couple of pieces and, go for another shot again?
I think that they definitely, I mean, so you're going to have to pay Jason Tatum a massive contract when his rookie contract's up here. I mean, you're going to have to like pay, him a 25 million to 30 million a year contract. So that's coming up. So it's one of those where that obviously takes away some of the flexibility. You're also going to have to pay Jaylen Brown a significant amount of money to keep him there. And so I think it's one of those where they have a great core. I think they just need experience, and I think they need to change it up a little bit as far as the complementary players for those two, because the way that it's currently constructed, it doesn't seem to me it feels like how the 76ers kind of feel every year, where the 76ers are like 2 superstars, but they don't seem to, like, the team around them doesn't seem to complement them each enough to make them like the team to beat in the East, and then they end up winning the whole thing kind of thing. The 76ers are always really good, but then they never are able to go anywhere or do anything with it. So I think it's one of those where I think the Celtics are just currently constructed not well enough as far as complementing their stars in order for them to do enough to win, like, or be a threat to win. Because Jason Tatum dropped like 50 points twice in these playoffs, and he only played like 7 games or 6 games total. So it's one of those where you have great superstar talent there in Jason Tatum. You have good players like Jaylen Brown. You just need to start building a core around them that is way more complementary than what it currently is.
Gotcha. Which, by the way, one thing was also, did you see that Joel Embiid was supposed to have a small lateral meniscus tear in his right knee? So they probably have to hold him out for the rest of the series. And then 2, apparently the Knicks just got eliminated.
Oh, did the Knicks just get eliminated live? Wow. That's rough.
I think so. I see the highlight. Man. Ray takes a bow as he sends the Knicks packing.
Oh, rough. Well, we were going to talk about the Knicks too. So, and our picture doesn't seem as happy as what we were going to talk about.
Could have pretended like this was in the past.
Yeah, right. No, now we're going to talk about it live. in a minute though. We'll finish with what we're talking about now. But yeah, that's yeah, like I said, I just think that this team ultimately needs to just construct themselves better. So I think there is a little bit of a roster roster, not a full roster overhaul where you need to just like trade everything, like the Magic are doing right now and, get new talent in. But I think it's one of those where you just need to get rid of some players and swap them out for players that better complement Jason Tatum as your core. That's who we're building around guy.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Cool.
in other news, oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, tell me about this because I'm not fully familiar with this man. I've heard his name a couple of times, but I just want to
Oh,
know a little bit more about why this is significant.
Dylan, the fact that you just said I don't really know that much about Coach K, just that actually blew me away. I actually thought you were joking for a moment there,
No,
and,
this
and then I,
podcast is more educational for me, for you to fill me in on things rather than me explain things
oh my
and my
god,
take on it.
oh god, did Coach K hit 900 wins in his career? I think he did. He's like, yeah, yeah. So he's considered people. Some people call him basketball evil because he's okay. So Coach K is a legendary coach for the last like 20 plus years in college basketball. One of the winningest coaches in history. Won multiple national championships. One of the greatest coaches in history, and will go down as one of the greatest ever. He coaches the USA team like multiple times. He's the one that coached, I believe, that 2012 USA team that won with LeBron and Carmelo and all them. He also he's been a Duke forever, and he's basically made Duke into being Duke. Like, the fact that Duke is like a powerhouse in college basketball, it's because of Coach K. Now, the reason why some people, especially Aaron in the chat here, calls him the basketball evil is because he really, really fully embraced the one and dones when that was happening, when that was first starting. And that's why people are kind of upset with him as far as that goes in his legacy, because he definitely embraced the one and dones when it was happening, and he won a championship off of it, and has won a lot of games with it, that strategy. So that's kind of why. But yeah, he's an absolute legend. You have to like look up his win total and everything in
What do you
college
mean the one and
basketball.
dones? That's the part that I'm
One
missing.
and done's is in like player goes to college for a year and then goes to the NBA.
Okay.
That's what we call that's what you would call a one and done. Is a player that goes 1 year and then is done.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, and he's the one that basically kind of fully embraced it. And being the powerhouse that Duke was, he ended up winning, I believe, a national championship with that kind of one and done strategy. And in doing so, it sparked other teams to obviously go, hey, we have to do that too in order to be good and, meet the same kind of quality that Coach K has in his, teams and everything. So then that's why we're at this point now where one and dones are such a huge part of college basketball. So
Okay.
that's why he might be considered basketball evil. But overall, though, he's one of the greatest coaches to coach in history of college basketball. And like I said, I'm serious. If you just Google his win totals real quick on the side, it's just he's won an absurd amount of games, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah, let's see, what is it? Men's career during the
Oh, it's
time.
over 1,000. That it
Oh
said
yeah,
that was the article was so. Oh, here.
yeah. Just go to
1,097,302.
just go to his Wikipedia page real quick. Yeah, that's his record overall. So, yeah, he's coached. So he's actually from Chicago too, which is also shout out to that.
Huh.
Uh, but yeah, he's coached from Duke in 1980, Dylan, to present. Is that what that says? 1980?
Yeah,
Jeez. Yeah, 1980 to present. He's 97 and 30 in the tournament.
that's
97
insane.
and 30. Yeah, he's just ridiculous. And if you scroll down, he's got five. What is that? Five NCAA tournament or Division One tournament championships. He's got 12 Final Four appearances, 15 ACC tournament championships. He's ridiculous. He's absurd. He's got so many awards. He's won 1,000 games in his career. He's had so many just incredible teams. Like he's the one that coached the Anthony Davis team. That was like absurd
Oh,
when
okay.
Anthony did. That was if you look up the team that Anthony Davis was on in Duke, it was all five of the starters on that team went in the first round of the draft.
Let's
Like
see
all
here.
five starters. So Yeah, it was literally Anthony Davis was the number 1 overall pick. Michael Kidd Gilchrist was the number 2 overall pick. And then there was like and then like it was like you had like Deron Lamb go. You had what was it? Marquise Teague. We ended up taking Marquise Teague. I don't know if you remember him from the Bulls, but we took him at like the end of the first round.
Oh, okay.
Terrence Jones. Yeah, it was just stupid. Oh no, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just dumb. Anthony Davis team was the Kentucky Wildcats. No, sorry, Duke. I'm thinking JJ Redick and stuff. My bad. Wow, I just went on like a dumb
Wow, imagine
terror
not
there.
remembering the correct names for any sport team from the past
Oh
10 years.
God, I
Embarrassing.
know. Look at that, Dylan. Just
It's supposed to be
terrible.
better than that. It's supposed to be me who doesn't know this. I don't know.
But yeah, it's the like he said, it's the blue blood thing. You made the tournament 6 years in a row. Then you had one where you didn't get to compete in the postseason, but City Boring gets like a third. Yeah, it's just that's why people hate Duke. It's just people hate Duke because there's just so many. It's and Coach K is a big reason why because he always gets like incredible teams and they're always just absurdly catered to and they're also just absurdly good and they're all ridiculously talented. And he's had players like JJ Redick, who at one point was like the most hated player in college basketball when he was there. And yeah, he's had some ridiculous teams. He's coached some ridiculous players, and he's just been a legend in the sport for what you saw. I mean, literally 41 years. And yeah, it's crazy that he is retiring. And it's one of those where like not every year does a big coaching job come available, like in college football, if Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Texas, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, uh, those type of schools, if a coaching job comes available, it's like crazy. It's like this is a once in a lifetime. Like, who are they going to get? And it's the same thing in college basketball. Like, it's Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina. It's just like a who's going to take over. That's why you had North Carolina's head coach Roy Williams, who's another legend, retired not too long ago, and his protege took over. And then same thing here. Coach K retires. Now it's a question of who's going to take over the legacy and everything that he built at Duke, and maybe you know either keep the same level of excellency or even close to the same level of excellency that they've had for basically 40 years.
And so, was there any reason? They're just like, hey, I'm done and I'm older and I've nothing to prove at this point, so I'm out type of thing?
Basically, yeah. Basically, it was just like he got tired of doing it every year, and it's understandable because, like I said, I mean, he's been doing it for years and years and years, and he's coached USA teams to gold medals. He's coached, countless college basketball teams to national championships and Final 12, Final Four appearances and things like that. And it's just one of those where he's just like, okay, I've won 1,000 games, I've won 5 national championships, I've won gold medals. Like, what else do I need to do?
Yeah.
So, but
Well, so tell me, what do you think's going to happen with the Knicks? The Knicks game. What do you think's
yeah,
going to happen with the
so
series?
oh, I think the Knicks in 7. I really think that team and that city, they've fought so hard, and just
Yeah,
one of those where they can't believe they lost. They're out of the series. Oh wow. Well, the run is over, Knicks fans. It was good while it lasted. We'll see you in the playoffs in about 5 or 6 years. No, I'm just kidding. They're actually, I'm just, I'm just joking. Knicks fans get made fun of too much and have to put up with too much crap. I mean, granted, sometimes it's a little warranted, but yeah, Knicks fans get put up with a lot of crap and a lot of bad teams. And so, shout out to the Knicks for actually having a good year and making the playoffs and everything like that. But yeah, no, I don't know what the Knicks are going to do for the future. I mean, Julius Randle played incredible this year and looks like he'll just continue to do that. Derrick Rose is obviously a nice piece, and Tom Thibodeau really built a nice team. So, really, what it is basically the Knicks need like a superstar or they need a good draft pick. Like they need to hit a home run with a draft pick or they need a superstar to come. I don't know who that's going to be because I don't know at this point who's going to be available and who's going to like, because somebody's got to push the needle far enough to make them into the national championship contender. And I don't really know who that's going to be. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of future free agents and everything. And I really can't think of who's going to push that needle for them and be a good team fit. But regardless, I think that's really what it is. I think they really are a well put together, solid team. They're just like one piece away. Like one piece. Yes, that's a significant piece, but it's one piece. They need like one more thing.
Akin to, they just need a really good quarterback, and they could definitely win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Basically, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, though, that's how it is in college basketball. It's a superstar driven league. If you don't have a superstar, that's why look
In
at the
college
Bulls. The Bulls
basketball?
are, huh?
Oh, okay. The NBA, or is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
just
okay.
basketball in general. The
Yeah.
NBA is a star driven league, and so look at the Bulls for instance. I mean, we have two literal all stars on the team, and we didn't even make the playoffs. So
I thought you were
that just
dissing
goes.
the Knicks so hard. You were like, "That's what college basketball teams have to do. They have to get a superstar." And I was just like, "Jesus, they just lost. Leave it alone." That's a
No,
little
no,
rude.
no. Not clowning on them that hard. No, I do. I'm fine. Like, I don't have a problem with the Knicks being good. Like, I'm fine with that. I was actually a huge fan of like the Carmelo Stoudemire teams that were going on at that time when they were both awesome. And whenever they were actually healthy enough to play together, it was awesome. But so I rooted for that because I was a Stoudemire fan. But yeah, no, I'm not clowning on the Knicks that hard. They just lost. They reeling from a great season that ended so poorly in the playoffs. But like I said, it's one of those where, again, it's a star driven league. And yeah, we're basically saying, like, oh, they'd be great if they just got a quarterback. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. It's, like you're not beating the Nets, or the Bucks, even with, just the current team that you have. Like, no offense to Julius Randle and everybody, but that's not enough. So you really need RJ Barrett to like either make huge strides or you need to get like a star.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense. Okay, and on
but they have
to
a great team. So,
yeah, and on to my second least favorite team to hear about, the Clippers.
the
I just find
second
them
least.
boring. I just find that's all.
Well, it's because they don't really play like an exciting brand of basketball. Like you've heard that term, like exciting brand of basketball. They just don't do that. They don't like they're really good defensive players, but like Kawhi is not an outspoken leader. Like he's just not. That's the way he's been. He's just not a leader of guys. He's not going to be the one that's going to be getting in everybody's faces, getting everybody going. Like he's going to handle his stuff and the day of the game, he's going to be there. He's going to show up and he's going to produce. It's just one of those where he's not a leader, and Paul George is not a leader either, as much as I love Paul George. And then, the guys that they have around him are good, and should complement them, but it's just they're the Clippers. They just don't ever do as well as they should. And then, for example, like Kawhi Leonard should 100% of the time be covering what's his name? Oh God, his name's gonna escape me. What's his name? Luca. Oh, there it is. Oh jeez. Um he should be 100% of the time covering Luca, and he's not. And I don't really understand if that's like a scheme thing. I don't know if he's just playing in the scheme and he's not speaking up. But if Kawhi Leonard wants to be Kawhi Leonard, he needs to like walk over to the coach and be like, "No, I'm covering that guy for the rest of the game, and I don't care what you say." Like that's how that should be, and that's how, like, not sound funny, but like, Kawhi is never going to be LeBron, and you know why that's the case? Because LeBron in the final or the playoff series against the ridiculous Derrick Rose Bulls said, "I'm going to cover Derrick Rose and I'm going to help take away Derrick Rose," and then he did. And so that's what Kawhi needs to do with Luca. Is obviously you're not going to erase Luca because Luca's too good for that, but you can at least like help, slow him down, make his life harder than what it is, because it doesn't look like it's that hard. I mean, like I saw earlier there was one of the games Luca dropped, like he went on like an 8-0 run himself at the beginning of the game, and it was like, why is this man not being double teamed every single time he crosses half court? Like the Mavericks are a good team, but they're not like that good to like win far in the West. So like we need to like make the game plan centered around Luca, and if you do that, I'm sure that'll help with the overall game plan and overall winning of the series. And yeah, they even the series up, but I think the Clippers are going to win this series probably in 6 games. I just don't foresee the Clippers being dominant in the future in any playoff series after watching this, because like if you're going to be the team that is going to win the championship, you need to handle the Mavericks a lot better than what you have done. So,
Yeah.
and you need to show that you can handle them better than what you have.
You know what's a fun fact too?
Hmm.
I think for the longest time, I straight up could not tell the difference. Anytime someone would bring him up, the image just be flipped in my head of Jokic and Luca. Like
Jokic.
I like I could not make a difference in my head. I was like, oh, and I would see one of them and I'd be like, I could either guess either name and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. That feels right in my head. Until I looked it up one day and I was just like, oh, okay. Nope, now I see it. Because they each were talked about as being like the new, like up and coming, like they're going to take over for LeBron type of person in the league. And that combined with the fact that they're like massive dudes who lumber around, I was also like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, they're probably the same. And then I saw their jerseys, and that's when I finally was just like, oh, wait, those colors are so weird. That's an alt jersey? And I was like, oh, no, they're different people. So,
Different people.
yeah, they're different people.
Yeah, Dylan, let me remind you that one of them is a 7-foot center and the other one is a 6'7", like shooting guard slash point guard
Right, I
slash like
wasn't
small
I
forward.
wasn't standing next to him. The height isn't gonna the height's not gonna do it for me. I thought
Yeah,
I
but
could
like
see him
they
on
stand
screen.
next to other players in pictures and stuff, and like one of them is significantly bigger than the other.
Well,
Like
it's just, you know.
one of them's got like 5 inches and like 50 pounds on the other. Like, but no, you that does I can see it a little bit what you're talking about, but yeah, no, Luca is one of the best players in the world, and Jokic is becoming one of the best players. I mean, he already is pretty much one of the best players in the world. It's just from the center position, it's hard to impact the game as much or get as much love as like shooting guards and small forwards and point guards get, but because they're just flashier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I said, at the end of the day, to go back to the Clippers, I don't know if the Clippers are ever going to be able to do it like well enough. Like I just don't have any faith in them in the next series or any series after this. Like I think they're going to win this series in 6. I just don't foresee them doing anything after that because they haven't been dominant enough in this series to make me go, yeah, that's a team that's going to be there. Like the Bucks sweeping the Miami Heat was like, okay, I literally said a week ago I have questions about the Bucks being good enough, but now after sweeping, the Miami Heat, I'm like, "Ooh, man, this series against the Nets is going to be amazing." And
Right.
then, when you look at the Clippers, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to do anything after this. Like I think honestly they'll probably win this series in 6 and then lose the next one in 7.
That
I don't,
future.
honestly, like I really don't they don't think they have like a spectacular future ahead of them in this playoffs. So,
And they have
you
to be
know,
just like easily the most hateable. Like I just don't know anything redeemable about them. They're not like a homegrown team for the most part. They're just like they're the really wasted shot of just like let's go grab a bunch of superstars and make them come here or like they want to come here or whatever, and then like see how it goes. But like I just have never been like, oh wow, I really want to see the Clippers, especially this team. Like I really want to see them do well. They really deserve it. Like they were kind of hateable before they had like Kawhi and Paul George, but now they do. So it's like great, whatever. I hope you lose. And they fired Doc Rivers too, and then right that also happened as well.
yeah, I think so. I don't remember exactly. I just don't
Yeah,
follow the
exactly. Because who
Clippers enough.
cares? It's the Clippers.
I
Why is
just
that a
yeah,
story worth
it's
following?
literally
You don't
that's
care.
a summation. As much as I'm talking about all these people and how I know all these people, I'm like, did they fire him? Do they even have a coach?
Yeah,
Is there other players? Are these the 3 players that are on the Clippers at all? I don't know. It's the
yeah,
Clippers. Who knows?
irrelevant.
Feels like it at times, but uh, yeah, I don't foresee the Clippers doing anything in the playoffs, and I think they're going to lose. And then we switch alternatively to the series that's going to define the East and who's coming out of the East. This series is going to be awesome. I'm going to watch every game of the series, and that's not even an understatement because the fact that we're going to get a Giannis Bucks team that are finally starting to play like they should and swept the Miami Heat. And you can say whatever you want about the Miami Heat and everything like that, but the Miami Heat were literally in the finals last year, and a lot of people thought they're just going to grow this year and become better, and they have been pretty good. So the fact that this is a thing where the Bucks swept them immediately and then are now going to go play the Nets, who are the Nets, and have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden coming off of a 4-1 series win that was just over the Celtics that we were talking about earlier as being a pretty good team. It's just
Yeah,
wild. It's just such an exciting series, and these are like the series that make the NBA fun to watch. Is when you get series like this, and so early in the this is an Eastern Conference Championship matchup in the second round, and I'm for it.
So
So
you like that actually when they're like the earlier on, and it's not always just like conference championships where actual good
I
matchups come up.
I like it because it tests the team. Like it tests the team early and it helps build them on their journey. So like it's one of those where when a team beats like a team that they shouldn't have beat, or a team beats like a team that was like, oh, this could go either way. It's a 50-50 grudge match, kind of thing. When a team beats that team and gets above that series and wins, it usually sometimes it drains them and then they can't produce well enough in the next one. That's what happened to the Miami Heat last year. They kind of just lost their energy going into the finals after coming out of the East and like such a hard fought Eastern Conference championship. And so then it's one of those where that can happen, yes. But then for teams like I think the Bucks and the Nets are, either team that makes it out of this series is going to win the East, and it's because winning this series is meaning getting over the biggest hump for either side. And then it not only that, but it's also one of those where for the Nets, if they get past the series, they've grown in chemistry. They've grown in team chemistry and they've gotten past a really, really solid team and they've learned how to play together to win against a really solid team. They're going to win the East and then be really good in the finals and probably be the favorites. Then vice versa with the Bucks. If the Bucks get past the Nets in this series, they're going to be the team that we all go, wow, they've actually done it. Like this is the year. Like they're going to make it to the championship, and I think they have a real shot to win it, kind of thing. So that's why this series is so exciting to watch, because it's a prove it kind of situation for both teams, where both teams will come out of this and you'll go, wow, that team definitely is going, like this team is definitely on target to play in the national or in the finals, and not only play in the finals, but compete enough to win it, that kind of thing.
That's what's interesting about it for me too. Is that like once the only bad part about that happening early is that like what's going to be competitive until the finals.
Well, you
That's the
still
only
have the
part that
Eastern
makes
Conference.
me think.
See, but the thing is you still have the Eastern Conference Championship after this, where whatever team does make it out of this is still going to play a really good team. And the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Championships are both really good matchups because both teams made it all the way through their respective conferences to the championship. It's just one of those where, like, this is a matchup that would be in the Eastern Conference Championship or be a stereotypical Eastern Conference Championship, but just in the second round. So, like, yeah, you can say that it might pull away from a little bit of the like for it that it's happening this early, but the fact that it's happening and then you still have the Eastern Conference Championship after that to watch the team get tested again before they make it to the finals is exciting. That's why I'm excited about the series. And like I said, I think the series decides the East. And I think whoever makes it out of this is probably going to be the favorite to win the championship. Just because if the Bucks, like I said, if the Bucks get past the Nets and they figure it out how to get past that James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant ridiculous super squad, it's going to be one of those where you're going to go, wow, the Bucks can overcome literally anybody else because they just overcame a ridiculous juggernaut. And then if the Nets win, it's like, wow, the Nets learned how to play better as a team, and their star power is just going to be too much for anybody.
Okay. And I want to
So,
let you know for the next segment that I just changed the title to "Lay Loser Lets the Lakers Down." So if there's any hate comments that come in
wow.
here, that's
Oh,
because that's with
man.
me. I think it's funny. So
Yeah, listen, I do not share the same level of Dylan
okay. By
clowning
the
on
time
LeBron
people
over
get here,
here.
they'll never be able to hear what you said. You'll be in the middle of talking and still getting hate. So don't
You
worry
know
about
what,
defending
Dylan?
yourself.
I'm gonna put this in the segment in the clip. I'm gonna be like,
Like a
listen, y'all,
disclaimer.
this is the other Dylan. This is left side screen Dylan causing mayhem and drama in the comments, and this is not me. This
Okay.
does not reflect the whole Dylan.
Let's see if it stops them. But yeah, I mean,
But anyways, this so if anybody doesn't even know what we're talking about or what we're looking at right now, LeBron basically left the final 5 minutes or 5 6 minutes of the game and went to go get treatment for his injury that he's been nursing. And it's one of
allegedly.
those. Oh, here we go, Dylan. uh you will get your turn, you wait. Let me explain it to the people. So anyways, yes, so this is LeBron leaving about 5 to 6 minutes early from the game. He went to go get treatment for his injury that he's been nursing. And there was quotes after the game that basically said that he needed to get his treatment or get started on the treatment now rather than later, and they were losing anyways, and it wasn't looking good. So it's one of those. And you can say what you want about the lay loser letting Lakers down. I do think there is something to say about them not having Anthony Davis. And yes, you would like to say that LeBron did not put up enough into the game, but we've also seen this before where LeBron tries to do that by himself in that 50-point game where he then created the lifelong and etched in stone meme of him looking at J.R. Smith like J.R. Smith just stole a freaking baby and then threw the baby across the room. Like, it's just, this is the level of stupidity in that move. And the fact that J.R. Smith in the first game, and I loved J.R. Smith as a player just because he's J.R. Smith, but just like the level of dumb that had to go into him just not knowing that they were tied and not winning when that rebound occurred, and then him thinking like, oh, I'll just dribble this out, we won. And then LeBron being like, stupid, take the shot. And then him just being like, what? Like, it's just, it's immortal. It's going to forever live. But in that game, LeBron had like 50 points. And yeah, he didn't play very well in the overtime, but he did have like 50 points to force the overtime in the begin with. And so, and don't get me wrong, I'm not LeBron's the greatest player of all time. I don't think LeBron's in the conversation for greatest of all time, just because I think LeBron at his peak and at the end of his career is going to be the second greatest of all time. And I'm fine with that as a fan of basketball. I think that that's okay. I just don't think that he has the role. I don't think people really can make the argument anymore that he's like in the conversation for the greatest. I think he's pretty much solidified that he's the number 2 greatest of all time. And that's like his height. Like, that's his peak. I think that's as far as he'll get once he gets, because in my opinion, there's just so much, and we can go into this whole conversation and I could rant about this one day, but
it's been done too many times.
Yeah, it's been done too many times, and I could rant about this and give my opinion, and I will at some point give my opinion on this because it's something that I feel strongly about, being a person that's grown up in the Chicagoland area and being, as you can see right behind me, Jordan's last shot, which you can't see, but over further off screen in that direction is another poster. Oh no, wait, no, you can see it. It's like right here. Is Jordan's first shot when he won the national championship, and then his last shot as a Bull when he won the the 6th finals. But I've always been a Bulls fan and a Jordan fan, so I have very strong opinions about this conversation. But I do want to say that there is something to be said, at least about LeBron not having AD, and when you're kind of like a team that plays well with each other and can win with each other, and then one of those two are out, it is almost like being, at like 60% strength as a team versus 100%. So there's something to be said about that, and I think that that's probably going to be a scapegoat for a lot of people in the series when they inevitably lose in probably the next game. But I'm just saying that outright, so that way it's at least we are respecting the fact that Anthony Davis was not in this game. We're respecting that, Dylan, and we're understanding that that's part of the reason why the Lakers did not perform as well as you would like. And yes, maybe LeBron didn't either, and this doesn't look good, him walking off the court with 6 minutes left. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Jordan would never. Never.
Dude, that was the first line that you heard out of literally everybody's mouth. It was like, I can't believe it. Would you see Michael Jordan walk out of a game ever?
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, calm down, everybody. Jesus, love of God. Like, oh Lord. Like, it was just like, did you think that they were going to win that game anyways? Like, if LeBron suddenly came out on the court, like, do you think that game was really going to turn the tide? Like, it was one of the. It doesn't look good. I'll give you that. It really doesn't look good.
It looks really bad.
It looks real bad in a playoff series where they're probably about to lose next game. But yeah, I just little everybody slow the brakes down. It's not Michael Jordan wouldn't do that kind of thing. I understand
all there
that.
just for the reactionary stuff because it's hilarious. Like, I eventually hope to bait somebody in, like, talk about that and get really mad about it because it's so funny.
Bait somebody in.
Yeah, because it's really funny. Everyone goes back and forth that debate all the time, and then people are like, "Oh, I was following it solely for all the super reactionary like hot takes and stuff." People, and I was just like, off the top of my head, I was scrolling through some of the feeds and it was just like, oh, I came in here to see 2018 LeBron, and like he's washed. Like that's not. He's like never doing that again. Like LeBron's done. Like oh, loser, all that stuff, and then like he only gets 7 points in the first half, and then he gets his lace stat padding a little bit at the end just to get his stats up, and then he can leave once he still has time left in the game. I love all that stuff. It's super fun. As someone who doesn't really even care that much about like what happens with him or anything about the Lakers at all, I just tune in just for everyone to completely drop on any other team like that or any sort of superstar because it's funny. There's always someone saying something that's like crazier than the next, and it's really good to follow because people are super passionate about it, and I think that's always hilarious.
Now, I get what you're saying, and I totally agree. I really do think that like just the overall drama and crap that comes out of this, and how every single person just immediately starts freaking out in either direction, whether it be defending or
Yeah.
just hardcore blasting, like Michael Jeffrey Jordan wouldn't have done that ever in his entire career. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, like different situations are different for everybody, and like it's a man in his like what 17th year. Let's all calm down, slow the brakes a little bit.
Just put on your
Like
hazmat
this,
suit and go onto the Twitter comments and stuff. It's
I
even
know,
more
I
fun.
know, it's just bad. I do the one problem I do have though, that I will say, and this might even spark some drama, is that I just am not a fan of super LeBron fans. Just because like anything you say to a super LeBron fan is just irrelevant. When you're like, when they're like, they say like, LeBron's clutch, and then you're like, okay, but let's like actually look at every shot that he's ever taken in like the final, what is it, like 5 or 10 seconds of a game to tie it or to take lead. And
Like the
your
Bulls
team,
one, because that's the one that jumps to my head.
I know, but it's just like whenever you look at that, I remember somebody actually compiled the stat for it, like the true stat, looking at all of those situations. And for LeBron, it was like a 20% completion rate of making those shots. And then
Oh
for like
wow.
Michael Jordan, it was like a 50%. Like it was like literally, it was like, yeah, he shoots the exact same in clutch as he does in the regular game. And then for LeBron, it was like, yeah, in clutch, he's like actually at like 20%. And I was
What a
like,
great project for some kid to do in class. I love that.
well, it's this YouTube video, and I don't know 100% if all of his back, like, it's one of those where his facts, like, he did say he compiled all that, or like that it was compiled. But if you go watch this video, for anybody that wants to go watch this, even if you're just an NBA fan, I encourage you to. It's like a half hour long, the video. It's literally like 27 minutes long. But this guy
Yeah.
put out this video, and it's a look at the Jordan LeBron conversation, and he breaks it down looking at analytics. He breaks it down looking at stats. He breaks it down looking at like longevity as one of the categories. And like out of it, like 4 out of the 5 categories go to Jordan. Like one category goes to LeBron in the GOAT conversation. And it's like the longevity he gave to LeBron, because obviously LeBron's got longevity over Jordan. But it was like he compiled all those, and then they were talking about basically, like I said, I think the way that the stat was compiled, it was like shot attempts over the person's career, where the game was in the final 5 seconds and you needed a shot to either tie the game or win the game. And I think it was like they both had attempted like 90 plus of those shots, and like of those 90 plus shots, LeBron had like a 20% like shooting rate, and then like Jordan had like a 50%. It was
Awesome.
like very clearly one person was like a lot above the other. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like obviously, that's like, not to sound funny, but if I'm taking a prime player to make a shot over LeBron for clutch, like as far as like who am I choosing over LeBron to make a clutch shot? I'm choosing Damian Lillard before I choose LeBron. Like no offense to LeBron, but like Damian, here's the fun stat for you, Dylan. Who's the only players? There's 2 players in the history of the NBA that have 2 game series ending jump shots. Who are those 2 players?
I'm gonna guess based on context that's Michael Jordan and Damian Lillard.
You're correct. Look at
It's just
that.
the Jazz and then also the Thunder that Paul George was on at that point,
Uh,
or was it the
was that?
Pacers?
No, I think it was the Thunder and the Thunder and the Rockets. Because one of the shots was he ended the James Harden, Dwight Howard Rockets.
Yeah.
And then the other shot was the end of the Paul George Russell Westbrook Thunder, I think.
Wait, so
And that was
Damian Lillard ended 2 series himself?
yeah.
Okay, so wait, Jordan's was the Jazz, and then what was his second one?
The Jazz, it was the one against the Cavs where he shot on Elo, good. You know, the one where he like
Oh,
jumped
okay.
he like jumped up and like hung in the air and then shot it at the buzzer. That was like that was like the series ending shot for that series. And then the other one was obviously the Jazz shot where he made the, game winning championship shot in the, game 6 of the sixth finals win, just nonchalant. But
Before you go off of that topic, the thing I wanted to bring up about that really quickly that was probably going to relate into something else was, I think I was also in the car, and I just always have on ESPN radio, and it was my least favorite program at that time. It was like Greeny on ESPN 1000 at noon, the worst of all the people on that show at that time. But he had interesting
wow.
conversation, which was which was talking about how I think he got married on that day, which I think was a few days ago in 1997, maybe. But basically, it was
Mhm.
one of the days that there was like so many different sports going on in Chicago. I think the Bulls were in the playoffs. I think probably not the Bears weren't even a thing. There was other things that were going on besides just the Bulls, but regardless, it was kind of just talking about how like even like his stepfather and like his dad, who like one of them kind of cared about sports, like he really liked sports. I think his dad and the stepfather didn't really care and just kind of wanted to keep up. But there was like so much energy for what was going on in the city that even like people who didn't really care about it that much were still just like, hey, like what's the score? Because there wasn't just checking your phone. They were like, having to do stuff for the wedding, but they're also like, what's going on with the game? Like trying to keep up with that.
Yep.
And I just really hope that sort of like attention, that sort of energy will come back with a Chicago team again. I mean, I'm obviously hoping it's the Bears because it's the one I care about the most, but that has more universal energy than I think any other team has the ability to get to right now. So
Yeah.
that's just a side note.
No, by the way, this is another little side note. If you want to pull up the David Lillard photo before you pull up that one, just because there's more that I want to talk about in that sense, before we shift over to a different sport. But I do want to say though, with that, is yeah, that whole, I mean, people don't realize, I mean, people do now with the Last Dance and everything, but people don't realize or didn't really realize how crazy popular that Jordan was, and really how what he meant for the city, but what he meant for sports in general too. And so I think what that kind of shows is basically just like how crazy in the sports world it was at the time for him to be such an icon, and then being in his last season for the Bulls, winning the championship in game 6 and the Jazz. And so it's just one of those where it's like, yeah, there's that level of excitement I would love to see out of the sports world again. Even just for the for the Chicago sports, any sport would be nice for that to happen. But yeah, no, it's, and then fun fact too, actually, to kind of mention about that is uh did you know that Rodman, after the game, immediately got on a plane and flew over to Chicago and then partied in Chicago that night?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, he like went to a bar. We actually had a guy, I was in our surgery, who was telling a story basically about how he had been at the bar, and suddenly Rodman came strolling in and bought drinks for everybody at the bar, and then it was like just a mad, like, just everything was, it was just crazy. And he said that like literally Rodman was like behind the bar, like just handing out drinks. Like he was behind the bar, like he was like, and like the bartenders and like everybody were just like handing him drinks to give out. Like he was just, it was just one of those where they were like, we don't care what we're losing. We're like, just everybody drink and celebrate.
Yeah, literally nobody's concerned about anything else.
Mm.
I mean, no, obviously no. Just that sort of mania.
Yeah, I
Cool
would love
thing.
that again in Chicago as well. I agree.
Yeah. This is the picture
Um,
I think you wanted me to pull up.
Yeah, so last but not least, real quick before we move on, because we do want to move on. I do want to cover the NFL stuff as well. I think because we're kind of getting a little bit later in the podcast.
Yeah.
So I do want to cover the NFL stuff before we end up going. But anyways, no, this is something I want to cover before we move on. Basically, kind of just a commentary on Damian Lillard overall, and just how I love Damian Lillard, but unfortunately, he's one of those people that is just never going to win any championship or anything, memorable enough to like he's gonna have like that Charles Barkley career where he's just like incredible career, an incredible player, and then just never is able to win anything. And it's because he's always butting against like the reason why Charles didn't win the championship when he freaking like not only should he have won MVP trophy, but he also should have won the NBA finals was because he ran into Michael Jordan. Like because Michael Jordan existed. Like that's why Charles Barkley hasn't had a champion or doesn't have a championship. That's why Patrick Ewing and the Knicks don't have a championship. That's why a lot of teams don't. And Damian Lillard falls under that category for me, where he's just got an incredible career and he's just awesome to watch. He's so much fun to watch. Every playoff series with Damian Lillard is just so entertaining, and his teams are never out of it, and he always brings them back. And then they always win a playoff series that they shouldn't have. And then always just the hype is just crazy. And he's got 2-game series ending, shots that we talked about earlier. He's got so many game winners. I mean, in this freaking game, Dylan, he dropped 55 points and had 2-game like tying shots to send it to overtime and then to send it to double overtime. And he still freaking lost.
He broke the record for the most 3 scored in a playoff game as well. I think it was 12 and counting at the time I saw it. I think it might have gotten to 13. Possibly was it overtime? Yeah, that's he broke that record.
I was gonna say I know Klay Thompson, I think, is the one that had that record with 12, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So yeah, it would be crazy if that is true. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I wish Damian Lillard, and it's sad because it's one of those where you just go like, you got to commend Damian Lillard for being loyal, because he actually, like, when his contract was up, he like said like, no, I'm re-signing with the team. Like I want to be here in Portland. Like I'm loyal to the city and I love this town and I want to be here. And it was one of those where everybody went like, wow, what a great guy and what a great stance. But man, you're probably never going to win anything there. Yeah. It's like so unfortunate. You're like, great job. You're like,
God damn it, I respect you.
Yeah, like I respect you, but man, is that going to suck for the rest of your career, never winning anything. And it's so unfortunate. I like, can you imagine Damian Lillard like on the Mavs with Luka, or like just like on the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi? Like if he was on the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi, they're winning the West. It's them against the Nets.
What about on the Bulls?
You put him on the Bulls. Oh my God, him, Zach LaVine, and freaking now Vucevic. Oh Lord, we are coming close to getting out of the East. We just have to get over the Nets, basically. Like that's just it's just there's so many teams that if you just said, let me put Damian Lillard on this team, the team would go, wow, that's an incredible team. And it's really sad. Like if he was on the freaking Celtics, that might be a whole different story. Like the Nets winning 4-1, that might have been an incredible series that might have gone the distance, and who knows who would have won. Like it's just there's so many teams that if you said, man, I want to put Damian Lillard on this team and he's going to be great, and it's unfortunate because it's just it's unfortunate, but he's just such a good player that's never going to play on a team that's going to win anything, and it sucks. But at least we get to appreciate his career, I guess, as we watch, and is it incredible to do it.
Yeah. So I was watching the game. It made it a lot of fun for the other game that was going on that was terrible to actually be able to watch that really quickly. And getting forced to double overtime was also kind of nice too, so I was able to catch the end of the game. So yeah.
Yep.
However, he will never have to worry about not being what is it? He'll pretty much be able to dominate that town for as long as he wants ever. Yeah. For still being able to bring them entertaining basketball and not be a bottom feeder. So good for him on that front.
And he'll be a legend in Portland for, the rest of his career, forever. And it's one of those where he'll never, like, any place that he walks into in Portland, everybody's going to love him and be like, hey, it's Dame, and he's going to have that to, carry on through his entire career. But it does suck because it's just one of those where you're just like, man, dude, your career on so many teams right now would be so fun. Like, just imagine him and Steph Curry playing together.
Yeah.
Like, it's just stupid. Like, there's just so many teams where you could just go, man, just imagine him and blank. Like, not to rub salt in the wound, but like, imagine him on the Knicks.
Right.
Like, that would be a fun team. Like, it's just so many teams. But yeah, it's So sad, but oh well.
Yeah. And so when you sent me this, I didn't notice until just now how many spots he took up. I thought it was only one
Yeah.
of them. So that's kind of
No,
weird, isn't it?
that's why I was showing you this, because I was like, this is hilarious. And I don't know if this is 100% like the true NFL jersey sales, but I think it was like Fox that released this picture. But yeah, it was like Tim Tebow's two different jersey types are like number 1 and number 2, which like of course it's the NFL and that's just the way that that is. And then you get to 3, 4, and 5, Dylan. 3, 4, and 5. We got Justin Fields, all three. And but like the thing is like it completely makes sense because he's literally the savior for the city right now. Like he is the only reason. Like we have talked countless times on this show and previous podcasts where we've been like, I'm ready to just boycott this freaking season. And then we got Justin Fields and it was like, damn it, I'm in. Like, let's go. I'm gonna be there every week. I already got my Justin Fields jersey. It's on the way. I can't wait.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree with that part at all. I'm surprised that actually no, I'm sorry. I'm not surprised about the order of these jerseys at all because I totally agree in terms of like what I like the most, but the fact that he dominated that many is really interesting. Because I guess it came up with Tebow, but Brady, I don't know. That's weird to me. It's very strange. I thought there'd be a couple other premier players to come up, but totally understand given the stance of Chicago thing.
Well, the thing is you do have to remember, like, for example, like him having it over Brady, like same with Tebow. Like it makes sense because it's like they're new players. Like Tebow being on the Jaguars, not only is that such a meme with him being a tight end and him being on the Jaguars, but like him also wearing 85, which by the way, do you know why he wears number 85? Because that's stupid. Um, he wears 85 in honor of his ex teammate Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, thing.
Yeah, which is
Nice.
like that's a choice. But yeah,
Yeah, that
so
is a choice.
of course, that's like a meme jersey where it's like I don't even care if he doesn't see the field. Like it's just a meme to have the jersey. And then obviously Justin Fields is like, listen, the Bears are the team that started the NFL. They're the biggest, like they're one of the biggest markets in the entire world is the Chicagoland area. When Chicago fans get together, it's like one of the biggest markets in the world as far as sports goes. And when you finally get something that is it's like getting something that you shouldn't have, but then you do, and every moment you just look at your phone and go, I can't. Like, do we have? Am I dreaming this? Did I wake up? Like,
Yeah.
or did we actually trade up to get a quarterback who should have been probably the number 2 overall pick, like, or maybe even the number 1 overall pick? I mean, yeah, we still have to see how he plays in the NFL, but it's one of those where you're just like, I can't believe we got this. Like, this is the most talented quarterback we probably have ever had of the organization, and that's not even like an understatement. That's a real probable fact. And that's a thing. And so, like, of course, Bears fans who at one point last year probably had like no hope in the organization doing anything. And then suddenly they literally brought the savior. And here we are. So that's not surprising that those 3 jerseys are there.
Yeah, which by the way, only as we get closer to more off-season stuff, but there's also a couple of like leaked videos. I don't know if you're following that from training camp because of the media policies that the Bears have. I think the reporter had to delete it within 24 hours, and it was basically just like Fields dropping bombs down the field. Obviously, it wasn't like 7-on-7s or anything yet, but it was like David Montgomery still going out wide, and it was still like a 30-yard pass that just like caught him in stride. There was a couple other good shots to like tight ends and stuff. Just the
Yeah.
way he's throwing the ball. Everything else you could see from there. There's only a couple of things. Obviously, when they get to more advanced practices, that'll be cooler. But it is coming up. It is coming up very soon. And eventually, we're gonna get to the point where we're in training camp, and there's gonna be the day-to-day coverage of everything, and the reporters saying how this went, and all that stuff. Maybe even go down. I forget if they're at Bourbonnais again or where they're at for off season. Maybe they won't even have that for COVID. I'm not really sure yet, but I went down there a couple of times with my dad and it was a lot of fun. I had a good time with it. I always really did. It was fun to follow and you could see everybody pretty much up close because it's not like overly packed or crowded. So
Yep.
that's going to be fun. That's coming up. And then there's, what else is on the side of it? Also, Daz Newsome apparently broke his collarbone, but he'll be back for training camp, I believe. So
Oh wow.
kind of a quick turnaround there. That was pretty much
Yeah.
like the biggest thing that came out today.
So it's probably like a hairline fracture or something small that wasn't, wasn't
Yeah,
major.
they're looking at hoping it's a clean break because that'll mean it'll be an 8-week recovery time. Should be ready right around the start of training camp. Just a couple other things that really came out today was just different press conference things with Nagy talking about Fields, talking about all the people that showed up. I believe the defensive starters, for the most part, did not show up for OTAs, but almost the entire offense did. And the defense, I think, on the other side was also participating in like voluntary Zoom like reviews and stuff for defense anyway. So not even as worried about them. They're all veterans. That's not really that important. The offense
Yeah,
is what's more
no.
important.
No, do you think like Akeem Hicks or Khalil Mack need to show up to freaking
Ah,
OTAs? No, they don't. They don't need to be there. Like,
okay.
go home, relax. You guys are like already do way too much. You basically carried the Chicago Bears on your back for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You probably need a break.
Yeah. And then on top of that, Justin Fields is leading the second team offense. They're not even pulling the third team. Like that's Nick Foles is shoved off to the side and he's doing third team runs and everything right now. So
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of sad for Nick Foles because like as bad as Nick Foles was last year, he also like literally did not have time to throw the ball. So like when that happens, it like is hard to play the position. But it's just funny how it literally they've been like yeah, we have Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, and you're like, don't you
uh,
guys have Nick Foles? And they're like,
who?
no, not at all. I don't know who that is. Is that the guy that carries the water to the? Oh, that
Yeah.
is the guy that carries to the water.
Which
It's
like
like,
I imagine he doesn't really have an ego. He seems like this type of guy who doesn't really seem to, at least anymore. If he ever did. But being like a Super Bowl MVP and literally a Super Bowl winning quarterback and then just being like, ugh, gross. Get that
that's what
out
I'm
of here.
saying. Literally, it's like I feel like at times Matt Nagy is like, who's that? Who's that guy that's is that Nick? Is he still here? Is he still there? Oh,
Haven't traded him yet? Damn it.
oh man, I forgot about him. It's like that's I feel like how that goes. He's just like he's like that like ghost where like he says something and then like the coach like does like one of these and is like, "You guys hear something?" Like
Yeah. It's
like
a sad situation for him.
and
And
then yeah, well then Nick gets in his car and goes, like, okay, I guess I'll just go home and make my 9 million this year.
yep, I'll be
like
just fine.
like what does he care? He's already won a Super Bowl in his career. He's already probably excelled way more than he should have. And then he's getting paid like 9 million a year, to basically I mean, he's getting paid like 9 million this year to just like exist.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations, you're like you and Tyler Bray are now best buddies and you exist. Like, that's
Right.
just unfortunate.
And
Tyler Bray's probably pissed because he's like, damn it, he took over my role.
yeah, he had a good thing going. And the
Yes.
only defensive starter that showed up was Roquan Smith, which at that point makes me question, like, what do you even do with him when he's there? Because, like, it's like if nobody shows up, what are you supposed to do? Does he just read the playbook and go through it there? Like, I don't.
No, it's because you have a new defensive coordinator, so you have to remember that, Dylan. So
Oh, yeah.
he could probably work like one on one with like, hey, when this play's happening, like, what am I looking for? And the coaches can like he can be like in position at his middle linebacker position, like on the field, and the coach could like have coaches or have people and be like, this is what you're looking for here, and he's like, this is the look we're looking, this is what you're gonna call, this is like your motions, this is what you're like. There's things that he can definitely do, especially with there being a new coordinator. If it wasn't a new coordinator, I'd be like, listen, I don't know why he's there. But since it's a whole new coordinator and Roquan's going to basically be the captain of the defense, obviously, besides, yeah, you have Akeem Hicks, you have Khalil Mack, you have Eddie Jackson, but Roquan Smith is the middle linebacker. I mean, he's supposed to be the coach on the field. So the fact that he's there working with the head coach or the new defense coordinator, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So, especially because he's like taking over. Like, the reason why Trevathan's there and the reason why Trevathan's still there is because Trevathan, even though he's like falling off athletically and everything, he's still the coach on the field that you have. Whereas like Roquan needs to transition to that like in the next year or two in order for him to take over fully for Trevathan. And so like that needs to happen. So the fact that he's there in OTAs, that to me is probably why he is. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, yeah, I
So
agree with that too. And also, I figured out what that word was. I was trying to figure out earlier. It's the Streisand effect.
oh, let's try. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Let's see.
so just so you know that in the future, that's what that one
Well,
is.
I'll just cut this clip and
Yep.
I'm just gonna put it into that part. and then we're gonna randomly cut back to this.
Yeah, it'll fit in seamlessly. And then you can go through this pretty quickly too, and then I think we'll probably cover up with that quarterback prospect you were talking about.
Yeah, we can talk. We'll very briefly talk about the one that is gonna commit to and then we'll talk about that new prospect, and that'll be the segment that we'll end on. So real quick, I just want to talk about this. The Cubs and the Sox are first. Both are in first place, and that is incredible in the sports world of Chicago, because it's actually fun to have two baseball teams that are good, because I love baseball and I love the Cubs, and I don't mind the Sox. Like, I root for them and I hope for their success as well. Just not when they play the Cubs and the Yankees, because those are my two teams that I love.
Yeah.
But I'm actually ecstatic that the team has two teams that are playing really well. And you could say what you want about this, the Sox are a team that should be up for the championship this year, and they've been building that way, and that's why they got the new manager, and that's why they made the moves that they did, getting Lind and everything. But with the Cubs, it's one of those where it's a contract years for a lot of those players. So it makes sense that people would suddenly start playing well in a contract year. But I'm also hopeful that maybe that's just them finally getting back to what they should have been for the longest time. Like Chris Bryant's calmed down a little bit lately, but Chris Bryant actually playing like MVP Chris Bryant of the past is nice to see finally. So I'm okay with that as well, and I'm kind of hoping that continues. But honestly, it's just fun to see two good baseball teams playing in this city of Chicago, and it not be a a false hope or something. Like, they're actually both playing very well, and they actually both are built pretty well and have a lot of great players, so it makes sense why they're playing well finally. And so that's awesome, and I hope that it's sustainable and it continues, and I look forward to it the rest of the time. In the whole the rest of the season. I know it's a long season and we got plenty of time left, but I'm still very excited and I'm very hopeful for what to come with all of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am also getting to go see a Sox game this weekend, so I'm excited
That's
to
going
do
to be
that
fun.
too.
I actually really want to go to a game before they start to let full capacity back, because
Yeah.
like my doctor that I work for has been to a couple Sox games, and he's talked about how it's nice because when you go, like, you literally sit by yourself and you can like sprawl out and like nobody's around you, and it's like, and then like getting concessions, there's no line, and then like getting out of the stadium's easy, parking. I was like, that just sounds so nice. I was like, that
Yeah.
sounds like an experience I want before we get back to normal. So it
Yeah.
was like, I'm not even upset about that. It was like, I actually want to do that just to do it.
No, I mean, completely. Completely. The whole nice part about that was always that there's just less people, which is just better for everyone. So
Mhm.
I could totally understand that.
Yeah. So like, yeah, so that's awesome. So you'll have to let me know how that experience goes, and we'll talk about that next time. But yeah, I'm, like I said, overall just super excited for the fact that, like I said, we have two good teams again, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to have that in the city. And again, like I said, I love baseball, so seeing two teams in the city be successful, and I hope they continue it and everybody's playing well, and the rotation or bullpen for the Cubs is actually playing well, which is like crazy, because if you know the Cubs the last couple of years, like I have, you basically have watched the Cubs just like, like they'll be winning games like, I don't know, it'll be like 6-0 or something like that. And you'll be like, wow, we're winning 6-0. And then suddenly, like, it'll be the seventh inning and you're like winning 6-0. And they'll be like, that's great. And then suddenly you'll look at the end of the game and it's like, oh, we lost 8-6. And you're like, why? It was like, how? It's like, what happened? And it's because our bullpen happened. Usually that's the way that it goes. So it's usually the bullpen happens, and then that's why it's as sad as it is. But
Right.
yeah, no, I'm actually extremely excited overall for this season. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to all of it. And yeah, it's just I'm excited for you to even get to go see the game. That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
So
that's gonna be strange, but really cool.
um but yeah, so
Okay, and then let's see. I have the video for the next person, but we get to go through this since I already had it up.
yeah, so this is just a fun one that I really want to highlight real quick, because it's just a player. So the segment I want to open into next is after this is a player to look forward to next in college football. This is a guy that you'll see in college football in the near future, and it's going to be fun anyways, because He's literally going to Ohio State University, which is my favorite college in the entire world. And I'm a huge Ohio State fan that watches literally every single game. So you can imagine my excitement to be watching a 5-star prospect come in at quarterback who's probably going to be immediately the starter. So I'm hyped and excited for it, and I can't freaking wait. But he's also literally going to be a living meme for the time he's in college, and he already is, because look at that mullet. I mean, it's absurd. And not only is the mullet amazing, but his arm is incredible. He is getting a lot of comparisons to like Patrick Mahomes because of the arm angles that he throws the ball at, and how skilled he is at basically throwing the ball off, off centered and off, weird angles that usually you aren't supposed to be able to throw the ball at. So that's a lot of things that are drawing comparisons. But yes, so yeah, and he's got ridiculous zip on his arm. For those of that don't know him, he's a 5-star recruit, committed to Ohio State. He actually originally committed to the University of Texas, as he is a resident of South Lake Carroll High School is the school he went to. He's from South Lake, Texas. He actually committed originally to the University of Texas and then decommitted and immediately committed to Ohio State. And so I'm assuming he'll probably take over the starting job day one, or he might be one of those where he redshirts a year and Stroud or whoever's there is playing that year, and then you move to this guy the next year as a redshirt freshman. Either way, he's going to start the moment he's available to start. So if he doesn't redshirt, he's probably going to start freshman year, or at least get significant playing time, unless like I said, a Stroud or somebody's able to beat them out. But I don't, it's hard with what this guy does. And actually, if you want to switch over now to the clip, it's amazing to watch him, and in the way that he throws the ball, because it's actually it's crazy to watch. Like his weird sidearm and the zip that he gets on the ball and the accuracy, like right there, it's so weird to see. But that's why he's drawing a lot of comparisons to Patrick Mahomes. It's just the zip he gets on the ball, the weird arm angle, and the way that he's able to throw that ball in there. It's just he's got such a nice throwing motion, such an accurate, catchable ball, and he can throw it with zip. He can throw it with touch. I've watched a lot of his highlights in high school. Then this kid's only a junior. He's literally 6'3", 206 pound as a freaking junior in high school, and so he's not even going to Ohio State next year. He's literally going to be a senior. So it's just amazing that what we're watching right now is a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid who just learned how to drive and is also just an incredible thrower of the football.
So who's what camp is this? Like, who's actually filming these videos and stuff? Like, if they're just in high school, is it like a local beer reporter?
So this, I forget what the camp is called, but it's it's the most prestigious quarterback camp in the entirety of the country. It's it grades from 3rd grade to 12th grade quarterbacks, and it's basically for them to kind of work with not only scouts of teams and colleges, but also work with kind of quarterback guru type guys, and kind of gain some experience, throwing to, routes and getting tips on technique and throwing motion and, what to do here and what to do and, what maybe you need to improve on in the next year. It's like it's the most prestigious quarterback camp. And again, I can't remember what the name of it is, but that's basically the gist of it. And that's where he's at that moment. And I think it's like a 2 or 3 day camp. And of course, he was just showing out at the camp because he's a 5-star recruit, and so of course he is. But he's again committed to Ohio State, and I'm gonna be so freaking excited to watch him for probably the 2 years he starts. So national championship, here we come. I want to see a ring on Mr. Mullet's finger as soon as he's able to start.
That is a very bold prediction. I like it.
Oh yeah,
a lot of time and like it.
I'm uber excited for this. So, but in that same excitement, we're going to move to another quarterback that I absolutely love. And before we start this video, I'm going to give a little bit of information on this guy, so that way we can go into this video kind of understanding what this guy is. His name, first off, is Malik Willis. He is a quarterback at Liberty University. He's 6'1", 215 pounds. He was a junior last year, so this year he'll be a senior. He played 2 years at Auburn, sat behind Bo Nix when Bo Nix came in. Bo Nix was chosen over him. you can debate whether or not it was based on his talent or skill or whatever, but Bo Nix was also a 5-star recruit coming in, and that typically you want to start the 5-star recruits, that way you can get more of those type of players and start them immediately. So there's recruiting issues that could have maybe led to why he wasn't a starter. But anyways, he's 6'1", 215 pounds, and I can confidently say, in my opinion, watching his highlights, that this man, if he produces just as well as he did his junior year into his senior year, he's going to be a quarterback that goes probably in the first round of the draft next year. If not the first round, it's going to be second round because of his size. That's always going to be like a drawback on players. But man, and I'm going to say it, and it might be, iffy and it might be controversial, but this man looks like he's the next Michael Vick. And I'm just going to say that right outright and give him the expectations. So you can go ahead and roll the clip, because boy, is this kid ridiculous. It's just the amount of talent that he shows is just absurd. And like his throws are absurd. He's just so good. He's so crazy good. And when you watch these highlights, it really does draw a lot of comparison to me watching Michael Vick, his high school or his college highlights, because just the way that he plays the option, the way that he makes decisions, the smart, the intelligence, the escapability, that's really what draws him comparisons to me to Michael Vick, is his escapability. A lot of times, you watch quarterbacks and they have speed and they have the ability to play make and all that, but this guy just finds ways to break tackles or get away from defenders that, like I said, I just haven't seen out of guys. Like I said, the one that comes to mind is Michael Vick, and he's literally built like Michael Vick. Michael Vick's 6'1", 220 pounds. This kid's literally 6'1", 215 pounds. I mean, he's literally built like Michael Vick. He plays like Michael Vick. He's not like Lamar Jackson, blow you away speed, and so that he's not using that to get away from people. But like I said, the escapability is the key word there, because he just finds a way to get away from people. And then just look at the touch on these throws. Like, it's just the touch on these throws and the velocity that the ball comes out. It's stupid. That was an incredible catch, by the way. Wow. But the throw, I mean, was there. So like, and he's playing at Liberty University. Yeah. So the talent he's playing against is not spectacular. I get that. I understand. But listen, if you look at quarterbacks in the history of the game, quarterbacks don't generally come from big schools. Yes, some do, but I mean, if you just look at a lot of the schools, Peyton Manning coming from Tennessee, you have like Ben Roethlisberger, I think, came from Miami, Ohio. Yeah, this play. Drew Brees came from Purdue. Like, I'm pretty sure Joe Flacco, I think, was Delaware University. Like, it's just, quarterbacks come from these smaller schools because they don't have a lot and they do a lot with a little, is the way that it goes. And look at this. It's stupid. He's just so good. And like right there, you don't see his breakaway speed. He doesn't have breakaway speed. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not gonna just immediately, that's a touchdown. Although I think if he had Lamar Jackson's speed, he'd probably be winning the Heisman. But look at this throw. Like, it's just the arm strength,
wow.
The velocity coming off the ball, the zip that he's got, the touch that he has, the decision making, like just everything about him. Like, he doesn't make bad decisions really. He chooses ball. He chooses when to give himself up and run. He chooses when to make the throws. He's usually looking downfield. It's not one of those where, unless it's a designed run, he's really not looking to run. He's looking for, to throw the ball. It's just when he does run, he has an incredible escapability that allows him to basically just disappear from defenders. And you just watch over and over again. Look at this throw. Boom. Like, it's bullets, the zip, just everything about this kid is just so good. And like I said, it's really about, we'll see how he produces next year and if he keeps it up. But if this kid keeps it up, I mean, is it too crazy to say he might even be in the conversation for the Heisman? Like, if Liberty wins like they did last year, and, maybe, obviously they're not a big, a massive school, so that doesn't play to his, favor. But tell you what, if this kid wins a lot of games, if not all of his games, and plays the way he did, and then goes and wins a bowl game, he's going to be up for the Heisman easily, because of the way he plays and everything. It's incredible to watch. He's a good thrower of the ball. I mean, look at this touch on this throw.
Yeah,
that's off his back foot because he was about to get hit.
Right.
So it's just, and he's not like a super flashy. It's just, there's so much to love about this kid. He's just not. It's just everything. Just like I said, I can't I literally cannot say it enough. The touch, the escapability, the velocity off his freaking hand, the way he throws, his decision makings, his throwing motion's not even like a weird one or something like. It's just such a good player and a good quarterback. And to me, he seems like the type of guy who's going to take this next year and again develop into an even better passer. And that's what you're going to get. So I'm excited to watch him next year. You can, like I said, let this video play out because it's fun to watch. But I'm excited to watch him. Look at this. I mean, look at that to me screams Michael Vick. That play screams Michael Vick. Like the fact that he somehow figured out he spun off that tackle, kept his eyes downfield, and then heaved it and threw a guy on the sideline is stupid. Look at that. Look at the zip on that throw, like in motion.
Yeah, it's really telling when you can actually see. It's just literally the ball like long. It reminds me of the mirror. I think
look at
Miracle at the Meadowlands game.
Yeah.
I think it was or whatever, where Vic had that ball that literally just looked like he flicked like his two fingers and boom, it was like gone.
And threw it like 70 yards in the air.
Yeah, so I could see where you're coming from that.
Well, and like I said, the escapability is the biggest thing for me because you watch Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson gets away from guys, but he gets away from guys because of his speed and his like quick twitch that he has because of how fast he is and how he can accelerate on a dime. This kid to me screams more like escape artist, like a Michael Vick, because of his ability to just find a way to get out of tackles and to get away from defenders in a way that, like, he's not, like I said, he's not super quick. Like, he's definitely not breakaway speed, like I said, Lamar Jackson. That's why, like, you want to compare him, and everybody compares guys to certain guys. That's how it always goes. Like, and you want to compare him immediately to Lamar Jackson with the way that he does. But to me, it's more Michael Vick because it's just Michael Vick had more of an escape type of ability rather than just a breakaway speed burn you because I'm that quick. And so that's why I would compare him more to Michael Vick. I don't know if he has quite Michael Vick's arm strength. The reason why Michael Vick was as legendary as Michael Vick was is because Michael Vick's arm, I mean, like literally you could flick it 70 yards. So his arm strength's not quite that good, but it's good enough. Like, it's obviously, as you're watching, it's good enough to win with. That's for sure.
Wow.
So
it was completely. What happened there? That was complete.
It was just a breakdown. Nobody had the quarterback basically, and everybody split out, and the safeties split out, and so then the middle of the field was just wide open because there wasn't a safety like hawking over the middle of the field. Look at this throw. Look at that. It's just stupid. Just in stride. I mean, literally, that ball could not have been thrown better. Like, you could not have thrown that post better. And that's the way it is. It's consistently that way when you're watching him. Like, look, it gets away from defenders, runs. Look at somehow finding the seam, finding the opening, and he's just a gamer. He's just I mean, he didn't run with that ball. He threw it because he found a guy in the back of the end zone. He could have ran with it. There was a wide open gap in front of him, and he chose to throw it. And guess what? He got a touchdown. Look at the touch.
Again. Yeah.
Boom. Look at that. Like, that's touch. He put touch on that ball. He chose to. If you actually rewind this, like, just go back like 15 seconds, it's just, you see the touch on this. Like, watch right there. He makes the conscious decision to put touch on this ball and to lob it up instead of because he could have rifled it in there, but it didn't look as pretty as that lob.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's for sure. So, yeah. So Malik Willis, next Michael Vick, in my opinion, if he continues to play the way he's playing in this video and that he did last year. And he actually, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think Liberty beat Coastal Carolina. So if I remember that correctly, I'm pretty sure they did. And I'm pretty sure they're the team that beat him. And he had some highlight plays against them as well. So
boom. There's our thumbnail. There's our video title right there.
Yep. I just can't wait. I'm excited to watch him next year. This is again my first of the segment that I hope continues, and I think will continue, and I'll probably do more players and more quarterbacks as I find guys and stuff as we get closer to the season and everything. But this is a guy to watch next year, and it's fun to know about these guys before you go into the season because then you can kind of monitor the hype as you go and you can watch them, in games and everything like that. But so this is a kid, right? Look at this throw.
Yeah.
Just moving across his body, sets his feet, makes the throw, and it's right on time and on target and in stride. Yeah, this is them against Coastal Carolina right here. So just running the option well, and then breaks away a touchdown. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think they did beat. Um, I'm pretty sure they did beat him. So either way, I'm excited for you know to watch him next year. And so that's my first that first guy that I will say of the segment. Hey, guys and quarterbacks and players to watch for next year in college football. My first one, Malik Willis. The next, Michael Vick.
Okay. Pretty good then. That covers up background. Boom. Oh, Malik Willis. Oh, the QB school. This guy went over him. Well,
Yeah.
I've seen his channel before. That's kind of
No.
cool. Well, you have an eye for talent then.
Listen, Dylan, I know my quarterbacks typically, and I know that people are going to probably clown on me for like my Justin Fields video rating him as low as I did. The quarterbacks. Listen, I can be wrong, and I'm happy if I'm wrong on that. I will 100% accept that. But there
Oh,
are
for sure.
quarterbacks that I have not been wrong about and have ended up becoming the better player. Like I know that you can say these things and just be like, well, I said that guy was going to be good, but I legit, like, even you can attest to it. Like I've told you year after year, like quarterbacks I think are going to be good, and like one of my guys was Josh Allen. I remember. I don't know if you remember, but when that
Yeah.
was coming out of the thing, I was like, listen. People were like, "Oh, he didn't play very well at Wyoming, and he didn't play. He didn't have a lot of stats, and he only threw for like 1,700 yards." I'm like, "Listen, do you see that a man sitting across from you that's 6'5", 230 pounds, is athletic as hell, and can throw the ball 80 yards? Because that's what I'm looking at,
Yeah.
you know." And that's why I was like that. Too good, too good. I was like, I watched him throw the ball, and too good. And then guess what? Too good. Here we are. So yeah, that's I generally, like this year for quarterbacks, like I think Justin Fields is going to be my guy. Obviously, I'm rooting for him for the Bears, but I do think that he actually has the ability to do it too. Just looking, just watching him and everything. I do like Kellen Mond. Love Kellen Mond. Check out the video if you haven't seen it yet on my breakdown of him. But I do love Kellen Mond, and I think that he's a guy that you'll see in the future. I don't know if he'll ever reach like superstar status or but I think he'll be a very, very good quarterback, and I think he'll be better than Kirk Cousins, that's for sure,
Yeah.
in the future. So that's exciting for Vikings fans out there, or just fans of him in general. But so yeah, so just every year I like to point out quarterbacks because I have a good eye for them. And I don't know, just something about Malik Willis. If he continues to do it next year, he just jumped out the page, jumped off the page at me. Just everything, like I said, when you're looking at a quarterback, what I look at a quarterback for is partly the eye test, but what I also look for is things like making good decisions. Does he choose to throw touch on a ball like he did on that one? That's why I pointed it out specifically that he chose to add touch on that ball, because I was like, that's a decision. Like he's not doing it on accident. He's not doing it in this one throw. Like he decided, I'm going to put touch on this ball. And then there's also throws where you go, yeah, he decided that he was going to just rifle that ball in, and that's what he did. And then, it's things like making good decisions, like I said, good decisions with the ball. So he chose, instead of not to run with the ball, he chose to throw it, even though he could have. There was a clear path in front of him with a lane, and he threw it and scored a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Like it's just those are the decisions that make a good quarterback. And despite the whole size, which I know is going to be a problem with him in the future, it's one of those where he's too good. And if he plays that well again next year, he's going to go in the first round. He at least should go in the first round. If he goes in the second, it's because of his size and the fact that he didn't play at a big school. But I think he should go in the first round. But that's, another player to look out for next year. That's going to be incredible. But yeah, that's a series that I would like to continue. And that's why I am good at valuing quarterbacks, because I don't look quite at everything. You know, I don't get caught up in like the whole conversation, like I said, with Josh Allen, for example, where people were like, oh, he's, didn't produce the numbers and he wasn't very good at Wyoming. And it's like, yeah, but just the throws he was making, the intangibles, what you're working with, and everything. He's too good to fail. Kind of one of those things. Same with like, you look at like Baker Mayfield, for instance. Some people still hate on Baker Mayfield, despite the fact that like he's a very, very good quarterback when put in position. Lamar Jackson was drafted at the very end of the first round, even though when you watched him in college, that guy had a lot of throwing potential and then was ridiculous with the ball in his hands. So Like it's just I don't buy into the hype that a lot of people do on guys or things that get said that people automatically slot into like, well, that's why he's not going to be successful. It's like, well, no, I look at everything why he could be successful, and in my opinion, are those over everything that makes him not successful? Yes, okay, well then he's going to be. Like that's how I look at it. So
Yeah.
but,
That's gonna be it for us today.
yep, a lot of
Right.
topics. Went through a lot of topics, got through all the things we wanted to talk about, plenty of stuff. Probably went on extra rants, of course, like we always do. Like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, we either devolve or evolve into conversations for better or worse that end up as fun little things than conversations that we have, and that's what we like doing on this show. But we did get through all of our topics, and of course, next week we'll have another fun collection of topics. I'm sure the sports world is going to have some interesting things for this next week, and coming off a short week, kind of not a ton happened, so hopefully it starts to pick up again. But we'll be back next week, next Wednesday, same around the same time with all new topics and everything. And that's pretty much all I got. If you want to,
Yep.
you got
And
anything else?
if you liked all this stuff, please go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and they will be clipped out of context or in context later on this week. So that's gonna be it for me. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Thank you everybody for joining us, and have a good rest of your night.